Overtime is where it all began to go south for the Maple Leafs, but tonight's extra period may very well be where it all begins. What's going on, everyone? And welcome to Season 2, Week 5 of the Leafs Line podcast. We have a lot, and I mean a lot to unpack. It's been a wild week of hockey for the Toronto Maple Leafs and just around the league in general, but we're going to take a big focus towards this blue and white squad, despite having a big win, big 2 points in the win column, because this team, which we're going to discuss very briefly, are fresh off an overtime victory against the Chicago Blackhawks, 3-2 your final. But first, before we get into anything else, I'd like to introduce my co-hosts here, Evan Davis, Adamo Ramoli, Jared Rottenberg, and Matteo Colos. It has been a fantastic time doing the first episode. I'm hoping we can ride the hot waves into episode 5. And why not kick it off with the fresh thing that is in our minds, the 3-2 win from the Toronto Maple Leafs. We haven't been saying a lot of things about winning in this Toronto Maple Leafs organization over this last couple of days, but finally we've been rewarded, and this was a grind game from the start. The Chicago Blackhawks painted the picture quite early in the first period, jumping to an early 2-0 lead, their first lead of the season, breaking one of the worst streaks in hockey. They were infamous this season through the 2 weeks of hockey for that stretch of games. It's been ugly, but they jumped to an early 2-0 lead with Jones getting his first 2 assists, but big 2 assists on the night. He's been looking pretty sharp over the last couple of games. Doc scored the goal and DeBrincat to add to that 2-0 lead. And then the Leafs began to turn it on after a pretty sluggish first set of minutes. What's new with this Toronto Maple Leafs team? It's a repetitive cycle with this squad. They come alive, and Mitch Marner comes alive for the first time this season. He gets 2 assists in the road to the comeback. Tavares scored the one to start it off. Kampf, his first goal as a Maple Leaf, coming in his old barn where he didn't even score a goal in Chicago. He gets on the board for his first as a Leaf and to tie this game at 2. And just as we make our way into overtime, and a pretty good overtime at that, William Nylander buries the breakaway, and there you have it, an OT win in the books, a much-needed OT win in the books. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys just now. What were your thoughts in the games, positives to pull? I know there's not too many, but, I mean, in a win, you have to pull some positives from this kind of game. I'll start with you, Evan. What can you make from the Maple Leafs' 3-2 victory over the Chicago Blackhawks, extending their woes and maybe extending some of the fortune that the Maple Leafs need?
Well, sometimes it just takes one. And although the game might not be pretty throughout, like the Leafs got the win, and hopefully now that starts to light a fire under them to get things going. Again, it's against the Blackhawks, who have been setting records, but not how we used to see back in the early 2010s when they were on that dynasty run. But a win is a win. Hopefully this takes them somewhere. I know they got a game. I don't know if the earliest game's Saturday against Detroit. That's another game that they should feel confident about winning, but a win will always give you the confidence, regardless of how you get it.
What about you, Adamo? What do you pull from this game? I know there's a lot of positives considering it's a win, but there was also some shaky moments. One of the biggest ones that comes to mind is the Riley play at the blue line, which I might even put down as one of the worst Riley plays I have seen in the history of his tenure as a Maple Leaf, because it was pretty ugly and the game could have went squirrely from there. So what do you make of the game? Positives, negatives, overall sort of impression from it?
I still think this was one of our worst games this season. I seriously don't think they played well, and it was fun. It was a ton of fun to watch, but that's because we played objectively the worst team in hockey, and they had the lead. The fact that we couldn't play a 60-minute game against the Chicago Blackhawks is a little bit concerning. First of all, we can swear, fuck the Chicago Blackhawks. I don't know if we're going to touch on that, but fuck the Chicago Blackhawks. Anyways, and I hate to be the guy who shits on Mitch Marner, but he had the lowest expected goals percentage of the entire Leafs squad with a whopping 26. Now, that he was unreal offensively. I'm not going to say he played like shit, because he didn't. He had a good game, which is great to see. It was nice to see that he looked like he was kind of trying to create for himself. I like the way he played in transition tonight. Tavares, you know what? He scored, so results are results, but a little shaky with Tavares. But the defense is a mess. It is like the team defense in general is a mess. And this is a problem that Sheldon Keefe needs to address immediately.
And I was going to go towards like later in when we're getting into the Leafs about that defensive unit. It's been ugly. And the biggest one of all, that Muzzin Hall pairing just hasn't been it. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know the minus is in the double digits and it is climbing as the games go by. So Muzzin looked really poor in this one, as he has been looking through the last couple of games. Justin Hall has been ugly. There was a play where he was in front of the net. He didn't have his stick down, goes right through him, and there's a goal in the back of the net. And you mentioned the Leafs unable to get a lead in this game. That was also a big concerning part. Again, Jared, I'm going to touch upon it with you as I turn it over. They just have to always start from behind. It's a common theme. It's been a common theme last season, the year before, not starting on time. Babcock was always preaching those words, and it's looking like it's hitting ahead. It has hit ahead before, but now it's just becoming full circle. It's something that they have to fix. But the biggest lead that the Toronto Maple Leafs got was that last one where it matters. 3-2 in overtime is your final. And Jared, I'll turn it over to you. What positives can you pull from the game? Any negatives? I know Adamo's probably not going to add a Mitch Marner jersey to the back of that wall over there. I mean, there is one.
No, it's not up. It's not up. Relax. But
Is it because
there's one in the closet?
It's in the carpet.
It's in the closet. Yeah.
Is the camp one coming soon? Is she already on the way?
Getting restitched. It's on the way.
Oh. All right. Anyways, Jared, I'll flip it over to you. What do you make of the game and Mitch Martin's performance in general? I saw you raving about him on Twitter. I'd have to side with you there because probably his best game of the season. Although some shaky appearances, he had 2 assists. Can't complain from the kid.
Well, Adamo's not wrong. It was far from a perfect hockey game. It was actually, I'd agree, one of our sloppiest games of the season against a team that we should have had no problem taking out. So to say it was perfect is not the truth. It was ultimately actually a very concerning start. The fact that we got down 2-0 against the Chicago Blackhawks to a team that has not been leading at all this season wasn't a good thing whatsoever. But at the end of the day, we found a way to win the hockey game, and it was one of the most, from a pure entertainment standpoint, it was one of the most fun hockey games that I've watched all season. Yes, it wasn't perfect. Yes, you could look at a lot of defensive stats that it really was the farthest thing from a perfect hockey game. But the positive signs are ultimately we got out of the 4-game losing streak. That was good to see. Mitch Marner actually was looking like classic Mitch Marner, and that was amazing to see. I threw on the Mitch Marner jersey halfway through. That was awesome to see. I just like that he was contributing. He looked like he was dangling. He was out there being a confident player, and he's a player that he very much, you could tell he's affected mentally. So it's like when he's confident, you could tell he's confident, but when he is sitting there and doubting himself, it shows in his play. He looked like a confident player out there, and that led to him putting up 2 assists. It was a great game from him. Something I wanted to comment though, a sloppy part of the game, it was a sloppy game from the Leafs. It was a sloppy game from the horn guy, whoever's running the horns. I watched part of that hockey game in the shower, listening to it on the speaker. And I jumped up, I hear the horn. Oh, no goal. They messed up. Then on the same shift, another one. Oh, boom, no goal. I don't know what the horn guy's doing. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know what the hell was going on there. But overall, yeah, it wasn't a perfect game. It was a sloppy hockey game. But at the end of the day, the Leafs got the 2 points, and that's all that matters.
One thing I could say about the horn guy is that he hasn't had much to cheer for in the first period. A little unfamiliar waters this season because the Chicago Blackhawks, as we have been drilled in our minds, have not jumped to a lead at all this season, especially in the first period. They've had their struggles in that set of 20 alone. But, I mean, horn guy was off his game. The Chicago Blackhawks looked a little off their game for the last 40 minutes and even a little bit of overtime. But the Maple Leafs, not the perfect game, but they were somewhat on a game, a step above. I know Keith was talking about that level that he had to reach, and I can't believe it came after the Carolina game because there was a pretty basic level, a very minimum level that you had to hit. They weren't even there in the 7-1 defeat, or I wouldn't even say collapse, to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I just want to comment one thing on Mitch Marner, and it's just simply because we're going to touch upon the Maple Leafs, their fan base, how it's divided. A lot of people are throwing thoughts around about Marner, the mentality, playing in Toronto. These are all expected when you're playing in this city that cares so much. It makes the losses that much tougher, but it makes the wins that much better. And one of these wins is the one like this tonight. And Mitch Marner, it's not that he's not trying. He cares. I think it's that he cares a little too much. I think I'm a bit of broken record here. Everyone's been saying that. And I don't want to toot the horn of the old man here, but It's just continuously happening. He's forcing things, and I don't like when the kid forces his play. I think when he lets it come and the other players come to him, he's so much more dominant on the ice. I think tonight was a bit of a glimpse of what we can see in the future. Hopefully, he can extend it Saturday night against the Detroit Red Wings. Another gimme game. It's been a lot of gimme games. I'll touch upon it just after I turn it over to Mateo. It has been gimme games over the whole season. But Mateo, what were your thoughts on the game, the outcome, positives you could pull, and even Mitch Marner in general? I know he's been a topic of concern over the last couple of weeks, but he had 2 points. He has 3 points on the year, one of which, or first of all, he's finally on the ice for a point. So let's put it that way. Good for the kid. Number 16, snapping that streak. And one of his worst starts since 2017. What do you make of the kid? I should stop saying kid, but I mean, Mitch Marner, he's not that big of a kid anymore.
Looks like one with those missing teeth.
He does look like one. It's a little childish there.
You think the tooth fairy came?
He needs a new
Looks like a hockey
orthodontist
player.
or something.
You know how much Mitch likes to take the money. He won't refuse it off the tooth fairy.
Oh,
shoot.
Mario, I did not
Shoot.
expect that from you.
Oh, whoa.
Not a dollars and cents
Wow.
guy, but when I have the
Wow.
opportunity. I
Jacob,
gotta take it.
wow.
But Mateo,
That was good.
what do you think, man? Share your
So
thoughts.
thank God the Leafs won, or else I think Steve Dangle would have a heart attack while he's filming that YouTube video. So that's the first thing. I want to say a negative of the Leafs today. I thought their power play was pretty bad. They didn't concede for 3 chances. They definitely got some pressure, but they definitely needed to have scored at least one of those chances on one of those power plays against a shitty Chicago team. And also I had to agree with their terrible defense. A lot of the times, especially that Riley play, there was a lot of terrible 2-on-1s, a lot of just terrible plays overall. So I have to definitely give applause to Jack Campbell. He definitely played amazing throughout the game, and I think he's definitely deserves a first star throughout this game for sure. And I want to say Johnny Tavares definitely deserved his respect this game. Like Drake says, daddy's home, baby.
Love it. I love it.
Oh,
But there was a lot of positives, and I think you pulled them and hit them all on the head. Tavares, to name the few, he hasn't been his best self this season. One of which, including that he can't really. What I've noticed from Tavares this season compared to the ones previously, he's incapable of driving the line himself. And a captain at that age with that experience, you need that from your top 4 guy. He's part of the core 4 for a reason, and if you're unable to do that, there's something wrong with the game style you're bringing to the team, and it's something that needs to be fixed. And I think this game might have been a step in the right direction, but I have to see a little bit more consistency from number 91. It's been a tough season for him. He started the scoring party off for the Maple Leafs, and in typical Tavares fashion, on the backhand top corner. But I want to move aside from the game because I don't think it paints the full picture. There's a lot more things to dig a little deeper on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know how much we've been praising them a little bit, or some of us have been praising them more than others in this segment of the podcast, talking about the past game, the 3-2 victory from the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it's time to go back to a stage where we've been in most of the season, the dark stage, something that Leafs fans are quite familiar with. And I just want to touch upon the storyline that was last week compared to this week. Now, Evan, I know you're quite new to the city of Toronto and the media here in Toronto. How do you feel seeing the whirlwind of emotions flip on its head from last week, the home opener, and the excitements caused from the Montreal victory, the Ottawa goose egg that you guys watched live? We were saying that, it's the chances. We've seen big goaltenders. We can't beat them. Now it's just, we need another level from this Maple Leafs team. Everything is turned on its head. What do you make of the media here and just the Maple Leafs play in general? Because they have to hit that level. And I don't think tonight's win was even that level. I think there's a top notch there.
Well, yeah. Well, truthfully, I don't even think the Montreal win that opening night was either, because when you look at the 2-1 win, that easily could have been a 4-1 game in Montreal's favor. You had Jack Campbell making save after save. I remember in the first 5 minutes watching with Jared, I thought Jack Campbell might be up for the Vezina at the rate he was going. And he was just making too many saves that it can't be sustainable throughout a season. When you look obviously at an 82 game season, you need to be consistent throughout. You can't rely on your goaltender as much as they were in that first game, and even in parts throughout the season. Even if you look at that Pittsburgh game when they lost 7-1, there were still moments where Jack Campbell had to make that save, and he shouldn't be having to make so many of those in a short period of time, given how many games have been played. There needs to be, I think the slander is valid in the sense that if the Leafs do want to go far in the playoffs, if you continuously start from behind in the playoffs, you're going to get swept because the teams are too tough, they're too tight, that once they have a lead, they're able to hold on to it. Like, you're not going to consistently have and at least hope for these games where you're down 2-0 and then you win 3-2 in overtime, or you take a lead 3-2 late in a game. It's too hard if you're trying to think long term.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, it's looking as if the Toronto Maple Leafs are trying, well, I wouldn't say trying, but making it so much harder than it actually has to be in these recent games. And I really preach those poor starts where they're down. They're not enough shots on goal. Not enough, I shouldn't say not enough shots. Sorry, that's the wrong term.
Quality
not enough
shots.
There we go. Not enough dangerous shots on goal. This team, even tonight, didn't look threatening at all. There was a couple shifts, and I know I texted it to the group chat, the way this team had to play. It was that shift right then and there when they were all just 2 minutes swarming the zone of the Chicago Blackhawks. That's the way you have to play. Generating scoring chance from Nylander, Matthews, the big three in Mitch Marner as well. All scoring chances there. It just hasn't been it this season. And a full 180 from last week where we were talking about how you couldn't beat a goaltender. It was so hard to find the back of the net. We were just getting stood up from these Vezina performances. It's not been the case at all this year, this week. And Jared, I think you have some light to shine on it as well.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with that. At the start of the year, it was just, oh, we're getting our chances. They just aren't going in right now. And like you said, it's, oh, we're meeting these Vezina-worthy goalies every night. Well, that isn't really the case. If every single night the goalie plays like a Vezina candidate, then it's obviously something you're doing incorrectly. And I think that's definitely a very important factor that needs to be brought up, because people are always bringing in the excuse that, oh, it's just we're running into a hot goalie. Well, if you look at that Ottawa game that we went to, for example, Anton Forsberg shouldn't be looking like a Vezina candidate. You shouldn't make a goalie like that, who I'm not going to criticize if he had a great game. But I mean, you shouldn't be making goalies like that look as good as you're making them. And ultimately, it was very concerning in the first week. But okay, we were, I believe, 1-2-1 or something after that first week. It was fine. There wasn't exactly much reason to panic. Then the week after, I mean, this past week we just had, it included the San Jose Sharks loss. It included the New York Rangers loss. It was a 4-game losing streak. Obviously, that Pittsburgh Penguins loss, which I mean, me, Mario, and Adamo actually went to a sports bar to watch that absolute shit show. So that wasn't a ton of fun. But I mean, yeah, you see how the media turns on this team quickly. And as much as I personally like to be the positive person, and I don't like when people are like, oh, the season's done. Like, I hate when people are like, oh, the Leafs are trash. They suck. I'm like, no, it's still early in the season. There's a lot of time to turn it around. But I mean, you see how quickly this team kind of loses, the media kind of loses patience in this team. And that's what happens when you have a week like that. It was very disappointing. I mean, a 4-game losing streak at any point in the season is unacceptable, but especially to start off your year in a year where you're supposed to be looking like a candidate to win the Stanley Cup, it was really unacceptable. And as much as, yes, I like to say that people were being very reactionary and people were being unreasonable on Twitter, I do understand it, and criticism was absolutely warranted, because the team, and even including tonight, we found a way to win, but the team hasn't really looked good enough and hasn't played as good as we expect them to be with the players we have. We have the superstars there. I mean, you could say a lot of things about Kyle Dubas, but he's done a good job of assembling a good team, at least on paper. It's about time they start picking up their shit, and it's about time they start playing like it.
An expectation, that was the one word you used, and I think it perfectly describes this Maple Leafs team. The expectations, the bar is set at probably its peak right now, considering all things said and done with the way this team has had playoff performances in the past. That's now overspilling. And you mentioned the week. It's been a tough week for Maple Leafs hockey. Fans are getting fed up. That's what I'm sensing from the fan base. I'm sure you feel the same way. These guys throwing jerseys on the ice, don't think that's warranted at all, but I think it just shows that these fans aren't going to take it despite a loss in game 4, game 5. And they also found a way, again, in the regular season to lose a game 7 this year against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So game 7 definitely isn't their number, but it has overspilled from years prior. Adamo, you were talking about the winning habits very frequently in the group chats that we've been talking about over the week, just trying to dissect and answer the questions that have been posed to us about this Maple Leafs team. I want to turn it back to those winning habits. We saw it in the documentary on full display that this Leafs team has been insulated winning habits in them from Sheldon Keefe. It's been frequently told to them. And at times, these winning habits, look at last season and their regular season, for example, that long win streak they were on, those are winning habits. But this past week, this past playoff that just came by against the Montreal Canadiens, winning habits have been totally thrown out the window. What could you make of that? And if you could expand on it a little more, because I'm sure fans from the show, or maybe they don't even know about the winning habits, but want to know what it truly means to be a winning team and resemble to the cup contending teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning, who we will touch about in just a bit. And it might be in the opposite direction of Stanley Cup contending, but you know what I'm trying to say here. The winning teams have winning organizations, winning mentalities, and the Leafs just simply haven't had it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And tonight, I'd say, was an example of working towards those winning habits, even though they look terrible. My idea of a winning habit is, so it's the way hockey works. The best team never wins. The team who wins is the team who finds a way to win. And that's why every year I get sick and tired. Oh, they have more chances. They have more shots. They have the better goaltending. They have more expected goals. And they lose because they can't find a way to get a win. And in the beginning of the season, when we were getting goalied by like 100,000 George Vesenas, I was getting frustrated because we need to win these games. Like, there's no way Elvis Merzlikins, Jonas Korpisalo, Carey Price, Tuukka Rask, there's no way they all goalied us. So tonight, you read and react. This is a fire drill of a game, and we play the Chicago Blackhawks game, and we do it better than them, and we win the game. Though that's what I mean by winning habits. It's finding a way to get a win. And that's something they need to work on.
It's something that they've had to work on since the beginning of last season.
Yeah.
It's just been so frequently said, media conferences from Sheldon Keefe postseason, postseason when they lose in the round. I mean, these things are just words right now. They haven't been put to action. I think maybe this game was a step in the right direction, finding ways to win. Now, I think that's the biggest key in a winning team. I think you said it perfectly. Where the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think this game sort of, I know I've been referring to this a little bit more frequently than I should, but I think it was a great example to sort of sniff out. The Tampa Bay Lightning, when they beat the Detroit Red Wings. Now, the Detroit Red Wings, you may think as a slouch, but they came back down, I think 4-0 in like the first period and won that game in overtime. The way to win, it's not that they came back, lost a lead, went down 4-0. Yeah, that's an ugly part in your game, but you found the way to crawl back into it and win. I know we like to compare any losing team or any team that has expectations to the bar that the Tampa Bay Lightning have set, or the past Stanley Cup winner from that year has set. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are in that same group. I think they have to live up to those expectations, and finding a way to win better be what they're going into the next game and the next game and the next game until they're finally rewarded with the Stanley Cup. And the bare minimum around a victorious in the first round. You need to install these early and often. I think that's why Leafs Nation is panicking, or maybe not panicking, depending on which side of the coin you stand on. But that's the reason why the panic is there, because these winning habits should be there. The expectations should be met, and they just simply haven't. And Mateo, I'll just turn it over to you before we touch upon the panic and the overreaction. Is it warranted in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization? What do you make of these winning habits that Adama was mentioning, and just the sort of way we've been reacting to this Maple Leafs team? It's been a whirlwind of emotions over this past couple of weeks. I think we could all agree on that, but I don't know. It's been different. I haven't seen something like this in my life as a Maple Leafs fan. I think this is one of the worst periods of hockey that I've seen personally. This maybe throwing tonight's game aside, even though it was a poor defensive effort from both teams, but sloppy hockey and maybe lack of work ethic. The on-ice issues are there too. So what do you make of that?
So first of all, every championship team, every line has to play well. If every line doesn't usually play well, they usually won't win a championship. If you look at Tampa, every line was playing well, from Point's line to Cirelli and Stamkos' line to Goudreau and the fourth line. Every line was playing well. The Leafs recently, the third line and fourth line has been playing well. And then today, I guess a bit of the better players have been playing well. And then everybody played well today. So for the future, we got to make sure that all players on the lines are consistent. And when you're talking about fans and overreaction, I felt fans are overreacting a bit for sure. Looking at the Mitch Marner situation, I feel like it's a bit of a joke in my opinion. I feel like Mitch is definitely a superstar player. If the Leafs trade Mitch, who are they going to trade him for? And is he going to be better? If he goes on another team, he's gonna be the superstar on their team, and then Leaf fans are gonna be like, oh yeah, we should have traded him because now he won a cup with that team like they did with Phil Kessel. And how do you remember Phil Kessel when they traded him for a bunch of pucks? Do you guys regret that now?
No.
I was crying,
No?
but not now. I think
Oh,
it's
no?
I think it's really in the past. I think Kessel wouldn't have served a purpose in the years that the Maple Leafs were going down because it was a pretty treacherous path. It was a rebuild stage. I don't
Yeah.
think Kessel would have
The trade
maybe
made
helped out
sense
with
at the
that.
time.
Yeah.
The trade
We
made sense.
also
Still
we
does.
got the pick that got us Freddie Anderson.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah,
that
but-
draft pick. We
And
got
Kasperi
Kapanen.
Kapanen and
like,
Got Kapanen.
Scott Harrington. Big,
But like,
big Scott
big
Harrington
name,
guy.
big
in
name.
the end, the trade, like I don't know, I feel like didn't really help long term because the Pittsburgh ended up getting back Kapanen and then Anderson's on Carolina now. I don't know. Like in
Yeah.
the long term, I don't feel like it helped them that much. But you know why? I just feel like there's like been a cycle of Leaf fans just bashing their best players, and then they leave and do well on other teams, and then they're like, "Oh my god, what did we do?" So yeah, that's my reaction to that.
I think it's a valid point. I mean, in hindsight, I think the best GM in the world would ever relate to the fact that, oh, I'll predict a trade that's going to happen 3, 4, 5 years from now. Every deal you see in the National Hockey League is predicted in hindsight. What's going to help the team now, or maybe what's going to help the team if it's a younger player in the future. And the Maple Leafs just were simply not in the right situation. I was personally, Kessel was my favorite player growing up. I grew up watching that player succeed. It was the prime time of the Toronto Maple Leafs until they hit their downfall in that brick wall following that collapse of the Boston Bruins. But I was really sad about that trade, but I understood after I looked a little more into it. And my dad, he sort of taught me a lot about the trading, the NHL, how it worked. That trade made a lot of sense. Kapanen, we used him very well, very efficiently, getting back on track, especially when you want to look at that 2016-17 run. Well, Kapanen was a pretty big force. He was a pretty leading factor getting us to that first ticket to the Stanley Cup playoff, where they did fall short of the Washington Capitals, but evidently it was the season that turned the rest of them to follow. It was a season that brought life to this Toronto Maple Leafs team. So the Kessel trade, I really don't want to focus on it too much. I understand the point. Obviously, it's pretty, like, the Leafs do succeed. It's a fact. Pull up the numbers, pull up the players and the resumes. A lot of the guys who left the Toronto Maple Leafs organization do have some silverware beside their name, and it's just, I think, a luck thing. I don't know. A lot of the players, they just never had a purpose with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like Tyler Bozak, he won a cup with St. Louis the next year. He didn't have any real purpose, real identity with this Maple Leafs team in the way they were training towards. So I don't know. Trades with the Maple Leafs hasn't always worked, but I think the Maple Leafs won that trade with the Phil Kessel one, just because they got a little more value than what Phil Kessel could have provided. And he was in the decent tail end of his prime for the Penguins. So you got that stuff there. Good for him. I love the player. Still love him. The infamous hot dog photo will forever be burned in my memory. But I digress. Now, I just want to focus on this overreacting. You were talking about it as well. This has been the big storyline in Leafland. The overreaction, is it warranted? And after I go to that, I want to also touch upon who this losing streak, whose shoulders does it lie on? And is the panic button warranted? I think I'm going to go to Evan, start. You haven't said anything in quite a while.
All right.
Is the panic warranted? Start with that one, and then you can maybe work your way towards whose shoulders it should fall on.
Look, I was talking to Jared about this. I'm going to kind of explain a little more. I don't when I say the panic button, I'm not saying fire in the hole, it's done. I'm saying as of right now, if they continue to play this way, then the fire is going to, then you're adding more wood to the fire. It's just, that's why I'm saying that there should be an overreaction, because if you don't overreact in October, the time is too late to overreact in January, because by then teams have already figured themselves out, and by then it's oh my god, what is going on? So that's why you need, and I would be shocked if no one in the Leafs locker room feels the same way. If they don't think that they need to light a fire under them, then they need to be traded or waived, because you can't have that mindset saying, oh, it's only October, we'll eventually figure it out. No, you need to figure it out now. That's why there's the overreaction. I don't think, I understand some people on Leafs Twitter are it's complete. I don't think it's completely over. I think it is if they continue at this pace. So, and then in regards to who the blame falls on, I'm going to get backlash for this. I think it is Kyle Dubas, because the way that he pays his players, like Mitch Marner, who's making $10.8 million, you put the pressure on him to now be in this upper echelon tier with guys like Tavares, guys like McDavid, guys like Matthews. And I'm not saying he's not as good as them, but he's going to get that same level of criticism. And those are guys that were first overall picks, even Sidney Crosby, first overall picks. And I think the fault is on Dubas because although Mitch Marner wanted that amount of money, Kyle Dubas as a GM needs to say, like, no, like, you're not too bad. Like, you're not making 10.8 million. Like, we don't think that's your value. And if you feel that way, then I'm sorry. Like, then don't do what William Nylander did. Sit out. Like, it's like when a kid asks a dad, like, for a candy bar, and the dad says, like, but the kid's already eaten like 7, and then the dad says, yes, you can have another one. Like, you can have the 8th one. Like, I just don't think you can cave in like that. And I think that's the problem with Kyle Dubas, is that he said, you know what, Mitch, you can have 10.8 million. You can now face all of the pressure that comes onto you, especially in the Toronto media. You grew up in Toronto. You know that if you don't play up to that $10.8 million, your DMs are going to be flooded with people saying, why did they pay you close to $11 million when Connor McDavid, who averages 3 points a game in the NHL, is making just a little over $1 million more than you a year?
You're right. And I mean, it's hard. Like, when I'm looking at these situations, when you're looking at the panic button, do we have to hit it? Do we have to slam it? Like, how severe is this issue? I really try personally. This is like throughout the years, Leafs have been in a lot of these stretches, as we know. I try to put the ink in the paper out of the way. And I know it's fully warranted. You have to look at that dollars and cent range, especially when those guys who are making that high amount of money aren't generating the points you're expecting them to do so. And I think that the problems with this Maple Leafs team run a little bit deeper than the contracts. I think the contracts is what's glaring you in the face. That's what you're staring at. That's what you're stuck looking at every time you see Mitch Marner throw a muffin on the net when he's making a horrible pass. If you want to interrupt, just go
Yeah,
ahead.
can I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll be done
something
after this point. I just want to, like, I also, like, this might also get me a little bit of backlash. I think that Nick Foligno trade was horrible for the Leafs,
I
given
agree
the
with
fact that the amount that they gave up. And I understand it was a pressure situation for Kyle Dubas, but if you're giving up a 1st-round pick, screw the 2 second-round picks you're giving up. If you know you're giving up a 1st-round pick for a guy like Nick Foligno, you better know that you're going to be able to re-sign him, because anytime you give up a 1st-round pick, especially the guy in the last year of his contract, and you don't re-sign him, you just wasted a talent that you could have had for 10 years down the line. Like, and they also gave up 2 second-round picks, and especially for a team that is getting eaten by the salary cap, you need those assets if you want to make a trade. Like, if you want to trade salary for salary, you might need those 2 second-round picks and a 1st-round pick. And to not retain Nick Foligno was a horrible move by the Maple Leafs, considering he was a rental for a month or so.
It's an interesting point you bring up. And I mean, Foligno, I totally side with you on that. I really didn't like the deal when it came to be the 1st-round pick for a guy that age with that caliber of scoring. I thought he was the right fit in Toronto, not the right price tag you have to attach to that guy's name. And I think it was a double-edged sword for Dubas. I think it hurts him. That trade really didn't help his image whatsoever. But at the same time, and I'm going to prove this when I sort of go on my, not tangent, but my sort of seeing that it wasn't Dubas's fault. This blame shouldn't lie on his shoulder, simply because he did what he had to do at the time, at the situation given. They had to go all in. That was the mentality. The name of the documentary says it itself. They did everything they had to do because they thought the chips were in their favor. It was their best opportunity to do so. And they tried to make do on that, or make of that opportunity. And obviously it didn't work out. And I think that's why it lies more on the players rather than a coach, rather than a general manager, because Dubas gave them any chance they had. He assembled, like Jared, you mentioned before, he assembled the best team he possibly could, giving up questionable assets. But at the same time, what's the point of the GM in the National Hockey League? To build the best team he can. Dubas did that. It didn't work. And I think it was the players' shoulders that it falls on. And just to quickly touch upon the panic button, because I know that's where we started the topic off, and I want to turn the discussion over to that as well and bring it back. I think, Jared, I really like siding with you. I think you make a lot of good points. And I think we think a little bit more alike than I do with many other people. It's just that the panic button has to be hit for these set amount of games. It's not about the season. They have 70 games left. They played an eighth of their season in this last couple of weeks. This might not mean anything whatsoever when you're looking at it later. But what Adamo said before, and you guys bring up a bunch of good points, these games matter because there's expectations on the table. There's things you have to meet. There's quotas you have to meet. Guys like Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews have to have at least 6 to 7 points by now. It's just, that's the reason why I was saying it's time to panic, but not to the point where we're throwing the entire season away. There's a fine line between the yellow part of the panic zone and the absolute red part of the panic zone and the end of that zone where you're throwing the team under the bus and blowing it all up. And I mean, that's all I really want to say. I want to give you guys some screen time as well. So Damo, I know you haven't spoken a little bit. I want to turn it over to you. Panic button, yes, no. And of course, whose shoulders does this lie on? Because there's a lot of guys to pick at. Is it an on-ice issue? Is it in the management, in the organization? Does something have to change up there?
Green, orange, red. I'm smacking the orange. I'm smacking the. I completely said that wrong. Dang it! I was thinking about it in my head. I was saying green, yellow, red, like a stop sign, and I was going to hit the orange. So like in the middle of that orange, red.
You run yellows.
Yeah.
I do.
We all.
Yeah, like come on. I lost my train of thought. Thanks, man.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. The no, my thought is even going.
Smacking the orange button for panic
Smacking the orange.
mode.
Yes. I forgot what I was gonna say though.
No. I didn't think I'd throw you that off track.
All right, Jared,
it
what's
was-
your panic mode button?
Yeah,
Looking
go off,
at?
Jared. 1 sec.
Adamo
This is
suffers from
terrible
some-timers.
podcasting. This is awful. This is awful. No, Jared, actually go.
Jared, I need a rescue right now.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I actually think so you can see me on Twitter, you can see me in group chats, whatever. I'm very much like, guys, we don't need to panic. It's so early in the season. However, I think the way that Evan actually phrased it is the perfect level. And even what Adamo was saying, hitting that yellow button, the right in the middle, I think that's fair because I think ultimately criticism is warranted. The way the Leafs have played right now is unacceptable, to be honest, with the talent we have, with the team we have. It's definitely unacceptable. It's definitely warranting criticism. The issue I have, and I think everyone sort of touched on this, is the people who are saying, throw the whole season away, throw your jersey away, this team sucks, they're never going to win anything. I'm like, guys, the season started two weeks ago. Calm down, take a deep breath. You're going to be watching the next game. Or if you're not going to be watching the next game, then maybe this team isn't the team for you. Because if you're ready to walk away in October, then maybe this isn't the right team. So I think there's definitely a fine line, as you guys mentioned, because I think the way that the extent that Toronto media right now and the people on Twitter is taking it is way too far. Because yes, it's been a bad few games. However, it's October. And let's say it were to be the opposite. Let's say we were to go on some crazy winning streak. Are people saying, yeah, we're winning the cup in October? That's ridiculous. So why on the flip side of, oh, our team is terrible and we suck after a few losses, why is that acceptable too? You have to be, I'm trying to think of the word, but you have to kind of think rationally at this. I guess, I don't know. You have to think rationally at this time of year. It's October. The season started 2 weeks ago. Yes, you could be critical because the way we've played, frankly, isn't good enough. But to make any big sort of predictions about how the rest of the season is going to go at this point, whether it be great or the opposite, it's too early to tell. We don't know how the season is going to end up. And I love going back to the St. Louis Blues example. I mean, I get it. The reason it's such a crazy story is because it doesn't happen very often where a team's in last place until January and then comes back. Like, there's a reason it's such a cool story. But that shows you that in a hockey season, anything could happen. And I think the criticism of the team is warranted, but the extent that Toronto fans are taking it right now is way too far. The season started 2 weeks ago. Take a deep breath. You could criticize players and the team overall when warranted, but take a little bit of a step back, in my opinion. That's kind of my analysis of everything.
It was blown out of proportion, 100%. I just don't think, like, it was warranted. You hit it on the nail there. There has to be criticism because the expectations are so high. And I know I'm running in a circle a little bit. I've said this many times already, but it's just the thing. It's the Maple Leafs are unable to ever learn a lesson. I think that's one thing that we have to look at. They've been in school for quite a while, playoffs. They had their hard lessons there. Bubbles, it wasn't even considered playoffs. Had their hard lessons there. Regular season collapses, 5-1 leads against the Ottawa Senators, losing in overtime. Hard lessons to learn there. It's just it's a child that no matter how many times you try to beat it in them, they ain't gonna learn. They ain't gonna fix anything. So that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was the slice that I took over this last couple of weeks. But I think that was another slice of the cake that the Maple Leafs fan base has taken from it as well. It's just that they cannot learn. We're getting fed up. And I said it before, that's the fan base. That's what I'm sensing from them. They're getting angry. They need stuff to happen. They need results. And they just haven't been provided those results whatsoever. This win might be a step in the right direction. I don't want to go there just yet, but I don't know. It's just hopefully we're out of the hairy part here, because it might not mean anything whatsoever. Repping the spread, I see.
Hey,
Love
no
it.
sponsor.
We're not sponsored by
codes?
Sprite.
Yeah, no sponsor. Yeah.
No,
Maybe a couple promo codes. Then
And I actually just nailed the shot into the garbage. Just gonna put that recycling. Just gonna put that out there.
And he's eco-friendly, man.
Look at this.
Jared's the gift that keeps on getting better. It's just a fact. Anyways, the gift that I hope gets a little bit better here is Adamo's attempt to maybe say his.
He does have it. He
does have it. All right.
Yeah.
Sources confirm he has his take.
He has it. They look like shit. That's my take.
I could
No. You know what? I think all season they've looked terrible. And I know, like, I'm here to be the negative Nancy. But I genuinely think they have not looked good. And I'm concerned that this team won't make the playoffs. I'm genuinely concerned. We're talking about, we have to prep for the playoffs. We have to get there first. Do we think Boston, Tampa, and Florida are just cakewalks? Like, we're just gonna, let's pencil the Leafs in there. The Metro is ridiculous too. Do we think we're like 100% better than Carolina, Pittsburgh, Islanders? Do we think we're better than the Rangers? Maybe we are, but they're still a good team. We think we're the Capitals. We think we're just better than the Flyers. We think we're just better than. We're not. This isn't a lock playoff team. This isn't a cup contender like we thought. And the part where I'm concerned is that I think they are a cup contender, that they can just put in these dog shit efforts and just walk right into the playoffs when, we need to prep for the playoffs. We need to get there first. That's why I was so happy with the 2 points tonight, even though I seriously think this was one of their worst games this season. Like, worse than that. I'd argue worse than that San Jose game, worse than the Carolina game, because the defense, keep in mind, the Chicago Blackhawks did not have their starting goalie that won the Vezina last year, and they did not have their best player in Patrick Kane. And they still let in how many? I've never heard of this Hagel guy. And I feel like he was just going everywhere tonight. Like, the amount of chances is unacceptable. It was concerningly bad how bad they were defensively, and offensively they weren't even that great either. The power play looked good. They didn't score, or did they? Did they have a power play goal?
No,
I didn't think they did.
No, they're 0 for 3.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. That is so, and they looked good. But I don't care. I don't care they looked good. I want results. That's the thing, because looking good and not getting results is what makes you miss the playoffs, because Florida, Tampa, etc., they're going to look good and they're going to make the playoffs doing it because they're going to get results. So that's why I'm hitting that orange panic button. Not blow it up, because I still think this is a good team, but I don't think this is a lock cup contender like we think.
And I want to push the envelope a little bit more further to your favor here. Who's the blame fall on? Because it's been a lot of fingers have been pointed.
I know what you're doing here.
Huh?
I know what you're doing here, Mario.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing here. I need you to say
exactly what you're doing.
it. No, I need you to say it.
William Nylander, he's played like, no, I'm kidding.
I mean, he has been sucked in the vortex a little bit. I mean, since
scored the OT winner tonight.
Yeah, he scored the OT winner, but look at the past 2 games.
He's been on
shaky.
Come on.
It's hard. I mean, a pretty shiny object looks nice
like
in a bunch of dirt.
Yeah. That bunch of dirt. He's like the 4th highest paid forward. It should very not be a bunch of dirt.
It shouldn't.
But
go on.
I know you want me to say Mitch Marner, so I'll talk about Mitch Marner a little bit. In case you're wondering, that was 5 points in his last 15 games, all of them being assists, no goals. It's not good enough from an $11 million player. I don't know what else to say. Like, tonight was his one game where he looked good, and he put up absolutely dog shit results. Like 26% expected goals. That's awful. That means 75% of the expected goals on the ice were in favor of Chicago while he was on, for anyone who doesn't get that, which is very concerning considering it's Chicago. But at least he looked good in transition. He doesn't normally do that. Couple giveaways, notably was it that power play one? I think Marner made an errant pass back and they had a breakaway. I don't remember if that was Marner, but
Just say it was for the sake of argument.
for the sake of argument,
Sake of
I
argument.
think it was because I think Marner was playing on that half wall tonight on the power play, so I think it was him. But yeah, it's got to be better. I feel bad shitting on this guy because I'm not shitting on Mitch Marner the person because he's a fantastic person, but the player I've just never been a fan of ever since like we drafted him. I mean, all honestly, I wanted Noah Hannafin at the time, which thank God I was wrong. He's this little old me thinking, oh, we need a defenseman. But no, I'm glad we picked Mitch Marner because he was the best player in that range. But I don't like his ability to be kind of one-dimensional. He can't score for himself, and that's not what an $11 million player can do. Like this guy, I think he's hit 30 once, which is good. But if I'm paying you $11 million, you're not only going to score like 35 plus, but you're going to put up 80 points, and it's going to happen every single night. You don't get to be on cold streaks like this. This is unacceptable. What top six forward puts 2 points up in 8 games, let alone an $11 million player? Like, he needs to, there's not much else to say. I sound like a broken record because I'm probably going to say this next episode when he slumps, but he's got to be better.
I think you're the perfect voice here, the perfect medium for what Leafs Nation's thinking. It's just inconsistent results. That's been the storyline for the full 2 weeks. I know we had different storylines first week, second week, but the full image, the full picture is that they've been inconsistent to the T. It's ridiculous how bad it's been. Poor hockey, like you mentioned, Adamo, and Mitch Marner has been at the forefront of discussion. He's had his fair share of like the disputes have been there on Twitter. Twitter's a war zone after every Leafs loss, as we already know, but it's him who's taken a big blame, and it's his inconsistency that's like taking the blow. It's just not there. Hopefully tonight's performance, even though he didn't look great, he had two assists, his best performance of the season. He had
one. Yeah, he had two. Oh crap, my bad.
Yeah. It's all good. No, he had two. I know you want to try to find any angle to like rip at him, but he
just
did
too
have
busy
two.
pointing the gun right at.
Yeah.
No. Are you like, what did he assist on? He assisted on the first Tavares one. Was he on the ice for the OT winner?
No, he had the assist on the second goal.
The Kampf goal?
The Kampf one?
I'm pretty sure. They were saying on the broadcast he had 2 points, and they were still in regulation.
Did he? Oh, okay. Maybe he did, yeah. Maybe that meant his season total.
I mean, at least he's on the ice for a point, which is
whatever.
Nice
Yeah. First 5-on-5 point. We'll take it, Mitch. Like slow baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. Anyways, I just want to move the conversation on a little bit from Mitch Marner. I think all the conversations this past couple of weeks have been on Mitch Marner. And Mateo, before I just swing at the other sort of things I've noticed a bit of the Maple Leafs and just whatever else we have to touch upon this Toronto Maple Leafs team, because it has been a wild week. What do you make of the overreaction? Is it correct? Is it warranted? I know I sound like a broken record answering this question, but Maple Leaf fans have been answering this question and asking this question so frequently. Do you want to say something to them?
He had 1 point.
1 point.
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Well, thanks Sportsnet for messing me up. There goes my entire argument.
Evan Shaw's on goal though. Fair play to him. But yeah, continue.
Anyways, good game. Good game from Marner. Let's just leave it at that.
He got a point.
Let's not twist the dagger anymore. It's jabbed in there.
He played good. I admit it.
He has an Adamo approval.
Yeah,
guys, write this down. Take notes.
The
CEO of the Marner Hate Club has come out with groundbreaking information. He has something good to say about him.
I don't actually hate him for the record. He's a Leaf. I love watching him, and I want to see him succeed. I should preface that because I think he's a fantastic player still. Continue, Mateo.
Mateo, take it away, man. Overreaction, underreaction, and of course, who's the blame falling the most?
So I understand the reaction to all this, but I don't think it's warranted yet. By January, if they still playing like they've been eating egg burritos before the games, then they definitely deserve it. That's happened to me before, and I think it was actually against Adamo's team I was playing. So if that keeps happening, I'm going to say a Drake quote. I think Leafs fans have to start losing friends and finding peace. And coincidentally, the song name is Fair Trade. So I think you guys know where I'm going with that.
Oh man.
I thought I was a segue god. Never mind. Kick me to the curb, Mateo.
Okay, so
Take it away.
He's on
if
a
they
heater.
keep so if they keep playing bad, I think we have to start pointing fingers at the core guys. Like some people have been pointing at Kyle Dubas and Keefe. I think it starts to point fingers at the core. The past few years, the core, let's be honest, haven't been playing well in the playoffs and just haven't been playing well. Like so in 2019 where Tavares played his first playoffs with Babcock? For
2018.
2018. Was it 2018 the first playoffs? Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
So they lost there, right? First round exit, and then 2019 first round exit, and then 2020 first round exit. You see what I'm getting here? Obviously, with the change of coach, it's not the coach's problem. It's the core players, which is Matthews, Tavares, Marner, and Riley. So going back to the fair trade. Oh, does Jared want to say something?
I just want to say I was
Yeah.
wrong. I searched it up. He signed in Toronto in 2018, so his first playoffs.
Yeah,
was
so it was
2019.
29. That's what
Continue.
I thought. Yeah. So it's definitely not the coaches. So I think it definitely has, like, if they keep playing bad and they somehow lose in the first round again, just coincidentally in the playoffs next year, I think there definitely has to be a trade of one of the big three guys. If they can't keep going, if those guys are getting paid 11 million and build the team around them. I don't think they could just wait like Washington and wait 10 years till they're 30 years old to start waiting. Oh, maybe we'll win a cup in 10 years. Yeah, okay. Sure. And we're just gonna keep going to games like a bunch of robots and start the same cycle over and over again. No. Someone needs to take the blame. And in my opinion, Matthews and Marner haven't hit their prime yet. I think Tavares have hit his prime yet. I think if someone had to go next year, I think Tavares would be the number one, in my opinion, to go, just because of his age and just because I feel like he's been decreasing the past few years just in terms of play. So yeah, I think Tavares would go, but it would be hard to trade him, obviously, because of his contract. But I don't know. I feel like Dubas could definitely find a way to do that. But I'm not sure Dubas could do that because I don't think he has the bocce balls to do that. Because I think Tavares is this golden snitch, like in Harry Potter. He keeps in Harry Potter. He was trying to find that golden snitch. He finally got Tavares, and you know what? At the end of the movie, Harry Potter got Voldemort, and Dubas' Voldemort is the Leafs playoffs first round losses. So.
You're on fire with these references today, man. I got
Yes,
Drake
it's
on.
well done.
We're crossing streams, going to Harry Potter. It's the channel is terrific. We're channeling all the energy here on any form of entertainment whatsoever. And the Maple Leafs, despite not providing the best of the entertainment, they have provided some decent entertainment in a 3-2 win over the Chicago Blackhawks. And I want to wrap up the Leafs talk because we have been spending a good portion, and I think a warranted portion, because there was a lot to discuss. We had to answer some of the big questions that were still left to be unanswered. Left to be answered. And I think we did some justice. And I think we're going to move on to probably this other side of the coin here, the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, they're another team who we've been discussing quite a bit in this episode, and I think we're going to take it a step further. They're in a bit of turmoil right now, off-season issues that I'm going to be the first to say it. As the host, I will not be discussing those off-season issues. I think it's a full show on its own, and I really don't want to spend that kind of time getting that much in depth about something so many layers on top of it that we'd have to get into. So definitely a topic for another day, possibly another show for another day, because I know it's only the beginning of this sort of turmoil in the Chicago Blackhawks organization off the ice. But I want to get into what's happening on the ice for this team. And I know they just took a 3-2 loss, a collapse, if you want to call it that. They were up 2-0 and blew it in the second, third, and overtime period, respectively. They're left searching for answers in this NHL season, and quite frankly, a miracle, because you look at Kane and Taves, they held a bit of places on that COVID protocol list, Kane being the one who's still residing there. The Chicago Blackhawks had an ugly stretch of games where they couldn't get a lead. We touched upon that in the off the top of the show. It's been really tough times in Chicago after so many high spirits in this last decade or so, where they brought in a dynasty, lots of cups. Now it's all starting to go downhill, and pretty darn fast. And it's getting where they're looking for a big miracle. And I saw a report that their head coach, he was going old school with his tactics, Miracle on Ice style. If you haven't watched that video, definitely check it out. One of the best hockey movies there is out there. And if you ever watch that movie, you'd know that those guys, after losing a game that they should have won deeply, they got bag skated for hours until the lights were getting turned off. And I think the Chicago Blackhawks might have been, maybe not to this extreme, but they have been following this routine to a T. And I want to focus a little bit more, not just on the start from the Chicago Blackhawks, but these two players, impact players that have been such staples in this organization. I'm talking Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. You probably would not have thought of this, but they are on the forefront of discussion. I know it's early. We're talking about panic with the Maple Leafs, but I think the Chicago Blackhawks might be a step worse. It's an original six team. You know, the media coverage is going to be bad there as well. A lot of those guys care. They're passionate about their hockey team, and they're putting Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews on the trading block. I want to get your thoughts on that. I know it's early, and I know the rumors are going left and right. There's no real way to pin it onto. But Evan, I'll start with you. What do you make of the trade rumors surrounding Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews? And is it just simply overreaction that this fan base needs something, and they would give anything to maybe turn their season around?
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing until about 20 seconds ago. Why in God's name would you trade Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane? What are you getting in return? But I mean, in terms of the Blackhawks, I think we brought this up when we were discussing free agents, and I think I received a little bit of hate for what I said. I thought Seth Jones did get overpaid, and I think he's proving it now. Him 5-on-5 is horrendous. I think this was his first time 5-on-5 when the Blackhawks actually scored a goal. I think it was a -10 going into tonight's game. And the whole reason I said he got overpaid before the season started was because I don't think he's as good as the Blackhawks viewed him to be. I thought defensemen got seriously overpaid this summer. And I'm not when I'm saying seriously overpaid, I'm talking about guys. I think Dougie Hamilton and Seth Jones were two guys that should not be making the same amount of money as Cale Makar. And I know Adam Fox just won the Norris. It could have been questionable. I think he's going to be a fantastic defenseman down the line. I think getting him from Calgary, New York getting him from Calgary for a third-round pick was an absolute steal. The development that they did with Adam Fox, that's a guy who deserves $9 million. Cale Makar is a guy who deserves $9 million. Seth Jones, he did show sparks in Columbus. I never even viewed him as a total difference maker each game. He had some sparks. I didn't view him as a shutdown number one that will lock up a guy like Matthews or McDavid. So I think the Blackhawks reached a little on that. I think it's biting them in the you-know-what right now. And it's it's not working out. And I usually don't like being right, but when I am, I'm pretty happy.
No, you don't say.
Looks happy. Oh my God.
No, but I mean, I think it's sort of turning towards the fact you mentioned Dougie Hamilton in the conversation as well. He's turning into more of a one-trick pony. So Seth Jones, that power play is their only line of hope. It's the only thing they're sort of relying on to produce any points. You mentioned the 5-on-5 numbers. It's ridiculous. Entering the night, he was in minus, I think, 9 or 10. It doesn't make a difference.
They had scored 5-on-5. Yeah, he was -10. They had scored on him a stupid amount of times.
It's just you're paying a guy that much money. He has to be able to do anything that your team needs in that situation. Play the defensive end. First of all, defense is in his position's name. You have to know how to play defense before anything on the offensive side. You look at the best of the best. Hedman, that guy can play legit any situation you ask him to. You want him to be physical in the corners, and he'll go up and pinch in the corners, and good pinches at that. You need him in the defensive zone, reliable. He's there. Offensively, he's there. Mind you, he's playing with one of the best players in the league, Nikita Kucherov and company, but still, the good defensemen who make good money they play to their abilities. And I think Seth Jones, and I know we said this a lot in the offseason, and so I want to maybe dimmer it a little bit because we already know the conversation around Seth Jones. The contract was overpayment, and the early season result is looking to show that way. And when you're right, Evan. And yeah. I think a lot of people would side with you as well, and have predicted this as well. And Adamo, I don't know if you were the one to predict this as well, but if you want to add anything before I switch to him.
Yeah, wait, sorry, this is completely off topic. I just got this tweet from Chris Johnson. Connor McDavid in 81 regular season games has 152 points dating back to last year.
It's unfair. I don't know if we're gonna talk
like,
quickly.
that
I'll
is-
quickly say this.
That's like
I
playing
think he should be
rookie
banned.
mode.
Go. I think he should be banned from fantasy next year.
I agreed. I 100%
I swear to
agree
God,
with
I think
that.
Yahoo should take him out.
I
It's
say
not fair.
I say I to that.
Are
for
you
sure.
that good that like Yahoo's like, you know what, like no one can draft you?
Yeah. Okay. My dad used to tell me it happened with Gretzky, where like just leagues you wouldn't pick Gretzky because
Gretzky was playing when
it
the
was
internet
unfair.
was like when you were still doing carrier pigeon. You were
No, I
throwing
know,
your
but you
bird
used
to
to
like
have to
let you
do
know
it,
what
like-
pick you were
yeah,
getting.
I used to do it on like the newspaper, but like he should get that treatment because any team who gets McDavid in fantasy, unless you royally fuck up the rest of your draft, you're winning.
Like
Honestly, unless you royally screw it
Basically.
up. Do any of you guys have McDavid in our thing?
no, oh
I
yeah,
have McDavid in
Jared
one of my
does.
leagues.
Jared
Oh, you
has
do?
it in the Jared has him in the 12 man.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's ridiculous. But yeah,
Hey Jared, what do you
um,
want for McDavid? He's terrible.
Yeah, he's pretty bad. Do you guys want to play a little trivia, like
Yeah.
quickly
Do you
on
want
the
to do
Chicago
the
Blackhawks?
Do you want to do the
Sure.
trivia now, and then we can just get back into the like? We don't need to spend
no,
all this
I
time.
wanna
this
hear- I
isn't-
wanna
this
hear
isn't
a Demos
actual
trivia.
This isn't actual trivia.
Oh,
No.
trivia. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, this isn't actual trivia.
Evan,
Like, it's
spoiling the next segment.
yeah,
Oh, my
thanks,
bad.
buddy. He's supposed
Come
to
on,
happen.
Evan.
My bad.
But yeah, Chicago Blackhawks. So the team's 5-on-5 goal differential. The Ottawa Senators are fifth last with a -5. The Canadians are fourth last with a -6. The Toronto Maple Leafs are third last with a -5. The Arizona Coyotes are second last with -8. Does anyone want to guess what the Chicago Blackhawks are in dead last?
I'm gonna say -15.
That's 15.
Minus.
This is 5-on-5 only.
Oh, 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Minus 12. I go a little lower. I don't know. It's
Wait,
sure the
sorry,
numbers up there.
one more time. What was Arizona?
Arizona's second last with -8.
Oh, okay.
I'm going -14 Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, you fuck.
I'll go -20. I'll just go with a crazy number.
Mateo was the closest, -17. They have 5 goals, 4 and 22
Oh, I
against.
said -15. I
I mean,
think
like, sorry, yeah. So yeah, you're right. I'm not good at math, but yeah, dead last in goals against at 5-on-5 and dead last at goals for 5-on-5. That's also excluding tonight's game, but I think that just paints a picture because we were talking about Seth Jones being terrible at 5-on-5. Yeah, you're right. He is.
And I want to just bring up this point as well. A lot of things happen when a team's struggling. It's either in the locker room, outside. And I know those things are all common with the Chicago Blackhawks team, but if you also look at what's happening on the ice, it starts from the goaltending position out. Marc-Andre Fleury's been abysmal. He's not even there.
Yeah.
Like Vegas was, I guess, his saving grace because Chicago has not been it for that guy. He's a terrific goaltender. He's a Hall of Fame ballot, first ballot. He's terrific career. Chicago, it just hasn't been a sticking for him. He hasn't gelled with the team yet. And I know the defense in front of him hasn't been doing any favors, but I think I was expecting heading in with a poor defense, a little more saves from the great Marc-Andre Fleury that we're accustomed to seeing than this. He's had a slow start. I'm sure he's going to pick it up. He's a veteran. He's been in this league long enough to know how to break those curves. But the defense has not been there. The offense, you mentioned how much they've been outscored. It's just nothing's working for the Chicago Blackhawks team. I know I don't want to spend too much time on this squad because they're just, who wants to ever spend so much time on a team like the Buffalo Sabres have been? Not this year. They're doing pretty decent. One of the surprising teams in the mix this season, early on in this premature year. But I don't want to spend too much time on a dumpster fire developing team that is the Chicago Blackhawks. And Jared, I'll turn over to you if you can give me a bit of a brief synopsis of your thoughts on the Chicago Blackhawks, their play, the way they've been handling the stuff on the ice. I don't know. There's just so much up in the air right now with this squad.
Well, it's disappointing, to be honest, because they were a team that you saw the offseason, and yes, there was a lot of criticism around the Seth Jones contract. Yes, it was known he made a lot of money, but he still was a very big name. I don't want to say star, but I mean, he was talked about like a star. Like he's a big name player in the league. They got Seth Jones. They got the reigning Vezina winner in Marc-Andre Fleury. There was a lot of hype around the offseason additions Chicago made. And as someone who, I mean, growing up a Leafs fan in Toronto, obviously regular season Toronto is my team, but Chicago is my classic, the Toronto kid, my second team that I root for in the playoffs when when Toronto was eliminated. And they're a team I like and I want to see them. Obviously, I'm not even going to touch on the offseason stuff, but purely on ice, they're a team I like watching. And I want to see them succeed. I got excited when I saw the offseason moves that team made. And I want to kind of see them become a good team again, because Jonathan Toews, for example, is a player I really like in this league, as well as Patrick Kane. So it was really exciting when they signed those guys, and it is absolutely blowing up in their face right now. Yes, I mean, Seth Jones, there's no question now after the way he started the season. $9.5 million is a lot of freaking money, and he does not deserve it, quite frankly. And I was someone, when we were talking about it on one of the podcast episodes, I was someone who was like, let's wait and see how he does. He's been a big name, top tier guy in the league for a few years, or at least he's been the narrative around him, or he's been talked about like that. To be fair, I didn't watch a lot of Columbus Blue Jackets games, but the way he's talked about him, like, let's see how he does in Chicago, a new environment. And it is just absolutely blown up in their face right now. It is a pretty absurd start for their season. There's the teams like Arizona. It was known they were going to be at the bottom of the league, but Chicago, yes, it would have been a miracle if they made the playoffs. I had them being that final wild card team. So it wasn't exactly a big expectation they'd make the playoffs, but they are at least supposed to be competitive this year. And it is just absolutely blowing up in their face right now. Yes, it's early. And I actually wanted to touch on one thing. When you mentioned, Buffalo and Detroit and some teams are doing really well that maybe shouldn't. I do think the standings overall are a little out of whack right now. So it's hard to make big statements. Even you could bring up the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's hard to make big statements about how the rest of the season is going to go, because I do think Chicago is eventually going to pick it up and get better. I absolutely think Toronto is going to pick it up and get better. You look at the Colorado Avalanche, who are still at the bottom of the standings. Like, the standings are weird right now, but the way the Chicago Blackhawks team is playing is just unacceptable, to be honest. And that's coming from a Leafs fan who I could criticize my team right now and say they aren't doing good enough, but they aren't sitting there without a regulation win right now. Like, that is just unacceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, it's from a hockey standpoint, somewhat unacceptable to see these standings flip the way they are. I was going to touch upon it a little bit later, and I think we'll probably stick to our word there. It's all out of whack. You got the Buffalo Sabres. I think they're 4-1-1. They're always known to have a hot start in October. That's one of their, I guess, most successful traits over the last couple of seasons. That hot start to the year has fueled them a bit, but it's just made the disappointment even that much more frustrating. And we're going to just touch upon it briefly, but you mentioned a good point. It's just blowing up in their faces for the Chicago Blackhawks organization. And I think it soon might lead to blowing up the team. And that might mean disassembling that pair of players from Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. It's been rumored. I personally don't think it's the right idea. It might have to happen if it gets any worse than this. But I'm going to turn over to you, Mateo. You have a pretty good knowledge and a pretty easy hand going on the better players that happened in the start of the generation, or sorry, the start of the decade. Ovi, Crosby, and then you could throw Kane and Toews in the mix as well. Do you make anything of their trade rumors being true? Is it something that has to happen? And to what extent, if it does this team have to reach? Because it's getting pretty squiggly pretty fast for the Chicago Blackhawks.
So to be honest, I don't think they really need to trade Kane. In my opinion, he's definitely still getting more than a point per game in his past years. I think they could definitely trade Johnny Toews. I hate to say it, because Toews was definitely a mainstay in Chicago for those Stanley Cup years. But let's be honest here. In the past few years, Toews is not what he has been. And I think he definitely could be traded. But like what Evan said, what would they be traded for? Like, what would they get in return? Like, would it be worth it? Should Toews like stay and just retire as a Blackhawk one day? Because he kind of deserves it. He led them to 3 cups. So yeah, I just wanted to say, if any Chicago fans are listening to this, just to ease your minds a little, in the future, I think you guys will probably be good in the future, as you guys have some good prospects. You know what? Kirby Dach, Alex DeBrincat, and Kubalik. And you know what? Lankinen, he actually played not bad tonight. And Brandon Hagel. So you know what? I think you guys have definitely some pieces that you could build on from here. Obviously, you guys are probably going to be on the bottom of the league this year. Let's be honest here. But you know what? You guys got a future, unlike some teams. Cough, cough, Buffalo. So yeah, so that's my take on Chicago.
Take it away, Jared.
I just wanted to say I didn't mention the thing about Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews when I was kind of giving my piece. I don't know where you heard that rumor, to be honest. I haven't heard that, but it sounds absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. You're not, or at least I don't want to say you're not, but I'd be shocked if Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews or both are shipped off. Those are the core players on your team, and I agree. At times, big trades are necessary to kind of jumpstart a team. But that sounds absolutely ridiculous to me. I mean, the captain of your team that's gotten you through Stanley Cups and has been a huge part of your core since 2006 when he was drafted. I find a very hard time believing that he's going to be shipped out. Then Patrick Kane, who's been the most dominant player on your team since he was drafted in 2007. I just do not see those two players getting shipped out. I really don't see them getting traded.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to say something, Mattel?
Yeah, I was
Go
gonna
for it.
say if Gretzky got traded from Edmonton, anybody could get traded, in my opinion.
Like, I guess, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a different game today. Like you sometimes will see a big trade, but I don't know. That sounds a little ridiculous to me. And yes, anything could happen. It's hockey. It's a weird sport, but I just don't see it happening, especially not yet. I mean, you talk about overreaction from a team. If Chicago trades Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane 2 weeks into a bad start to a season, that is the epitome of overreaction there. I don't know. Maybe you could start the conversation. I don't know. I'd have to look at their contracts, how many years they have left. Maybe it makes sense, but I really don't see that happening whatsoever.
Yeah, and I mean, I read it on the Score, which was quite concerning because that's an actually pretty sustainable site. I get a lot of information from there, and a lot of it does end up coming true. So for Chicago fans, I don't think this is going to happen. So I want to assure you, loyalty in many sports tends to run very deep. Some sports more than others. I know hockey is a pretty basic one at that. There's lots of loyalty ties. And I look at it this way. If Jonathan Toews wasn't ready to retire or move on from this team when he was injured for over a year and a half, I don't think he's ready to move on when the team's scuffling and he has his cups. He has everything he needs with this team. I think he's just there for the ride, and he has everything he wants in Chicago. I don't think if you're in his situation, his shoes, you can ask for anything more. And I just want to wrap up the Blackhawks because I think we went a little too long on this segment, but I mean, they're a team that's in the dumpster fire of the National Hockey League. I think they might be there for quite a while because the changes and what's forthcoming isn't looking too promising. Maybe their youthful future in the upcoming years, but when we're looking at the shorter picture here, the one right in front of us, nothing too pleasing coming out of the Blackhawks organization. And I want to turn it over to, I was inspired by the one over there, Mr. Adamo. He brought in some trivia here. I think I'm going to continue the role. Such a good time we've been having. Gonna bring in the trivia that I have prepared. Now, guys, this is the first segment of the trivia. And I'm gonna explain to you how it works. So I got 3 questions prepared for you. I'm gonna offer you 3 questions every week. We're gonna add up the totals, and whoever is winning by, we'll set deadlines. I'll set for the first one. Whoever has the most points by Christmas, we'll have to come up with either reward, punishment, whatever we have to come up with. We'll be releasing it to the fans of the show pretty quickly because we'll be getting this one up and ready. But yeah, we got a lot to unpack in this episode, but we got to make some time for trivia. And these questions are pretty good. Only thing is, no cheating. I know it's a little bit virtue. I know you guys aren't going to cheat, but I don't know. Evan over there is a little skeptical. He's
I like to phone a friend already.
Anyways, we don't test here. Pardon me?
No, I said my hands are up. No cheating.
Oh, okay. All right. We got to make sure. Anyways. So the trivia begins. I will cue when I start editing this video some trivia music, some Jeopardy music if we have to throw it in there. It's going to be a pretty sick segment. But may we begin? So as the host, I don't get to answer this question because I already know the answers, but I will throw it over to you. Question number.
How do we like buzz in? If we do anything?
Oh, good choice.
The hands
Raise
up.
hand.
Raise
I
hand.
think that might be the best bet.
All right, for sure, because then it shows you who got it first. Also,
Yeah.
Jared, it hasn't started yet.
Just testing if the buzzer works.
All right. Look at Jared, looking out for the well-being of the team. I love it. Anyways, so the first question begins of our trivia on the Leafs Line podcast. In his rookie campaign, McDavid's season got cut short. Which team did number 97 suffer his injury against? A, the New Jersey Devils, B, the Philadelphia Flyers, C, the Florida Panthers, or D, the Washington Capitals? We'll start with you, Adamo.
This was the Philadelphia.
All right, Mateo, what about you?
Philadelphia.
Jared?
Philadelphia Flyers.
And Evan, to finish it off,
Wait, can you repeat the teams?
of course I can repeat the teams. The New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Florida Panthers, or the Washington Capitals.
I'll say Philadelphia.
All right, is that all your final answers?
Yeah.
Yes? Well, we're going to start it off on a hot streak because all of you have got the answer correct. Everyone is 1 for 1, better than my batting average in my days. You guys are on the board first. Everyone is tied at 1 apiece, and we make our way into
Wait,
these.
Mario, can I get a +1 if I say who it is that injured him?
No.
Oh, what do you guys think?
Nobody likes a kiss ass.
Please, come on.
Mateo.
No, I want to get a +1.
You could get a nice. I could write you in my good book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think wasn't it Manning that injured him?
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it
was.
Okay, Mateo's the teacher's pet. I'm gonna see an apple.
No, I
on
want it. It's not a teacher's
I'm gonna
pet.
see an
I'm the
apple
game-
on Mario's desk tomorrow morning.
It's the game. I'm the.
So are we all answering, or are we doing like how's this working?
Well, I think it's best if I guess we're making this up on the fly here, but
Yeah.
I think it's best if I just ask you guys all. You guys raise your hand. I'll
okay.
ask you like how we just did it. I think it's
All
okay.
right. Yeah.
All right, let's go with the second question of the 3. May 13th, 2013 was an infamous day in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Before the Boston Bruins completed the comeback to win Game 7, who was the last Maple Leaf to find the back of the net? Phil Kessel, Nazem Kadri, Jake Gardner, or my personal favorite, Cody Franzen? Let's start with you, Mateo.
Loved Cody.
Wait, so what were the options again?
So the options were Phil Kessel, your favorite player in the NHL, Nazem Kadri, Jake Gardner, or Cody Franzen.
I swear it was Francis.
All right, Evan, what about you?
I want to say Nazem Kadri.
Okay, final answer.
Yeah, Nazem Kadri.
Jared, who you going with?
I'm not confident, but I'm also thinking Nazem Kadri.
Okay, final answer, sir.
It is, yeah.
All right, and Adamo, to finish us off here.
Okay. I don't remember who, but I remember this player scored 2 goals. I think Kessel scored 2. Or was it Kadri that scored 2? I'm gonna go Kadri.
Is Kadri your final answer?
Fine. No, I think it's Kessel. I think it's Kessel. I'm gonna go Kadri.
You're going Kadri.
I'm gonna go Kadri.
All right. Well, the answer to this question is number 43, the suspension genius, Nazem Kadri. Is the final goal scorer in the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-1 collapse.
I didn't even watch that game.
So let me put the points together. Evan got it.
I
Jared, you also got it too.
Everyone
And
knows.
Adamo, that's what you get for getting brownie points.
Man.
Yeah,
Anyways.
now you wish you didn't kiss the teacher's ass.
Yeah, the teacher lays the hammer. I lay the hammer. I'm a strict one. Anyways, this to keep it going, to finish it off, this one is a little more suited for Mr. Davis because he couldn't get on the Leafs one too much, but he did get it right. So maybe he can get the one that he should have the answer to. And expectations, having a discussion on this show, maybe Evan could live up to the expectation. We're not used to seeing that in Toronto. Anyways, last week we saw the NHL's newest team score their first goal in franchise history, coming off the stick of Ryan Donato. In light of this historic moment, who scored the first ever goal from the previous expansion team, the Vegas Golden Knights? William Karlsson, Alex Tuck, James Neal, or Thomas Nosek?
Oh, James Neal.
Is that your final answer? Locked
Yeah.
in? All right, Adamo, what about you? James Neal, is that your final answer?
I'll go Neil.
All right, Mateo
I'll go Neil as well.
and Jared?
James, the real deal, Neil.
Well, batting averages are bound to go down, and baseball is one of the most sports known for failure. I think all of you were wrong because
Really? Carlson? I think it was
not Carlson.
Who was it?
Thomas Nosek
Oh,
against the Arizona Coyotes.
No.
I looked it up thoroughly.
Big
Trust
fan.
me.
No.
No. If Google's telling me wrong, you guys can get 2 extra points. 'Cause
No.
I'm not sure.
No, that's- wait. Wait, hold up. No. This is wrong. No, because they didn't
This is
play
fact.
Arizona. No. This Davis, you were wrong.
I think this is the home game. First home game was against Arizona.
No. But then
Preseason.
No, preseason was long
Arizona.
innings.
Oh, Mario's right. It's a ever on.
James Neal must.
No, James Neal scored the first goal in Dallas.
Oh, it's James Neal. Yeah.
So it was James Neal.
Oh,
James
you
Neal.
don't think
So
I mean, I had expectations at him.
First
I was happy he lived up.
No, he scored against Dallas in the very first game.
Yeah. He
So
scored
you
two.
must have been looking at the first home.
There
Yeah,
we
the
go.
first
No,
home
it wasn't.
game.
You're looking at the home game.
Yeah.
Preseason was different. Preseason, I remember the guy was named Wong. I don't know the first name, but I know someone named Wong. It was the first ever preseason.
No, of course I know who scored the first one.
I
Like,
mean,
I
first-
knew for a
first
fact
ever.
that was like the one time James Neal was actually relevant. Like, of course I would remember
Did
that.
he score like 40?
No, that was William Karlsson who scored 40. But like James Neal did start off like pretty hot.
It was gross.
He was good on film.
So it looks like all you guys answered James Neal, apparently.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was
Cruising,
correct
okay.
also on the first ever preseason goal, Tyler Wong.
Well, you get brownie
Wow.
point too, but unfortunately, it's not worth.
Yeah. What were
That's
you-
pretty. I didn't know who scored the first real goal, but I knew.
Are we allowed? Is there a copyright? But look. That's the
It's
picture.
official.
That's a picture of James Neal.
I thought I
Yeah,
actually did.
Neil Talley's first Vegas goal. Never question me, okay?
I've learned to never
I
question.
stay in the clutch, bro. Come in the clutch.
Anyways, so but the scores by the end of match one, Google 0. Mario Russo, I didn't think I'd get a 0. but
Mario Russo
you're at
has
a 0.
negative
Also
one.
zero.
We're in negative points, man. It was a tough one. Hey, growing pains. First show. We gotta give some leeway here. But again, let me tally up the scores here. I guess all you guys got 2 points. Mateo is left with the lonesome.
No, we all got
Oh, you got 3.
Yeah, 3. I got 2.
You got two.
You got 2.
I got 2.
The moderator wants to cheat us out and give us 2.
Make this harder on us.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Anyways, that concludes the first ever edition of Trivia, and boy, was it an eventful one. A whirlwind of emotions and a roller coaster, because we were on the hang a little bit that who scored the first ever Vegas Golden Knights goal. It was never doubt James Neal and never doubt Evan Davis, because he knows his stuff. Some weird trivia, but he's got it. Real deal, Evan Davis. Anyways, until next week, we have our leaders here. We'll see how it carries in to episode 6 of the Lease Line podcast. We have to get back on topic here. We are going to keep it a little bit business on the business side of things. And staying on the Vegas Golden Knights topic here, they have been, I wouldn't say scuffling a little bit. They had a big win against Colorado Avalanche last night. Robin Leonard finally showed some leeway in the crease, finally picking up a big win for him. He started off the season pretty poorly, and I'm not sure how the results turned out tonight. I don't have an eye on the
They
score
won
sheet.
3-2 in overtime. Came back versus, ironically, Dallas.
There you go. Everything coming full circle.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, I guess that improves their record to 3-4. So it wouldn't look like the record thing is the most thing to panic about. But I think we talked about it last show. The injuries were something to be a little bit concerned about, but also this offense. And I think you could agree with me here, Evan. The offense just hasn't been clicking. I think they're going towards the sort of trend that we saw in the playoffs last season against the Habs. If you want to rewind the tape a little bit before that as well, the offense just wasn't always there. There was not a lot of consistency in the offensive production. What do you make of it? You know it best.
I'll be brief, because I know like we're running short on time. Like the offense in terms of I'm not going to go all the way back to playoffs, because that already happened. What's in the past is in the past. In terms of now, that offense truly does run through that first line. And when you have Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty, who have now been out since game 2 of the regular season. I mean, Mark Stone in that first game of the regular season had 3 assists, and Vegas looked incredible against Seattle in that first regular season game. Like, they looked like they could really click and be one of those top teams. Obviously, when you lose even your captain, and Mark Stone, God bless him, I think he's one of the best captains in the NHL. Just the energy that he brings to that team it's something special, considering the guy was a 5th or 6th round pick of the Ottawa Senators. And that guy really appreciates every game that he gets to play in the NHL. And it rubs off on on the team. You could see it, and you can also just see it in the fan base as well. And in terms of Max Pacioretty, that's your goal scorer. That's the Batman and your Robin Hood right there. So it's definitely hard when you lose those two guys. Chandler Stevenson, I really like. He has picked it up a little for that team. He had 2 points tonight, a goal and assist. Shea Theodore picked it up tonight with a goal and assist. Like they're starting to pick it up. It's hard though. Like it's hard when you lose those two guys because it also adjusts the lineup to the point where now you have to call guys up that you were hoping to develop in Henderson. So, that's just the whole thing. Stone's on IR, which means I think he's out for another minimum 6 games. And Max Pacioretty's still out for another 6 weeks. So it's a tough sledding for Vegas.
And absolutely. I mean, if you think of it, I know we're in a local perspective. If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, if they were to lose big pieces, and I think you compare them to the likes when they're on to Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty. If you were to lose Matthews and Marner, the Leafs would be in the same boat. I don't think this is something to commend or condemn the Vegas Golden Knights depth. It's obviously there. You're looking at guys like Chandler Stevenson picking it up, like you mentioned. You want to say something?
The game winner.
There you go.
Hey,
guys that you're bringing in the offseason are getting game winners and getting goals. Stuff are moving in that direction. Yeah. So the depth is there. I don't think it was ever a question. It's just big blow. This is something that you have to expect.
But at least it's in the early parts of the season. Like That's something that I wouldn't put the panic button on because we've seen the success of Vegas.
Yeah, I don't think the Vegas Golden Knights even have a thing such as called the panic button because
except against Montreal last year. That was brutal to see live. That was brutal.
But I mean, no panic there. But I also want to ask you guys about the panic in any other team because Jared, you were talking about this. Me and you went back and forth with it about how the standings is just on a full tilt, a full 180. You're seeing teams like the Buffalo Sabres succeed, the Calgary Flames, who aren't a terrible team, but we didn't think they'd be doing this well. The Edmonton Oilers, they had a horrible getting swept by the Winnipeg Jets. They made some offseason acquisitions, some key ones at that, but I didn't think they'd start the season 5-0. McDavid's carrying the workload there. Draisaitl's helping him out. Evan, you mentioned the stat during the show with McJesus there. So it's
God.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat, but it's a big reason why Edmonton's chugging in as well. So I want to just ask you guys this. Out of the Vegas Golden Knights, who we just briefly touched upon, the Colorado Avalanche, who are having tough goaltending situation with Darcy Kemper in between the pipes, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have yet to actually score a goal in the first period, and are having Kucherov is placed on the LTIR once again. I can assure you this is not a recording. He is back there. Tampa's winning their ways yet again. But again, these three teams work powerhouses in the National Hockey League. What do you make of them, their slow starts? And is the panic button warranted to hit? Or is it just an early season thing where, yes, it happens, and it's just a weird trend that's just happened in the National Hockey League? Adam, I'll go to you to kick it off. What do you make of these two teams? They're scuffling a bit. Is it something that we should be extremely scared of? What do you make of that?
No, chill. It's still the Tampa Bay Lightning we're talking about. I know. I remember in our first episode, I said that they aren't leaps and bounds in front of everyone because I don't think they are, but they're also still a really good team. I've watched a few games of there this season. Obviously, they're not the same team with and without Kucherov. When you add a 130-point player, a guy who can get 90 assists, like 50 goals, you change how you play. And Colorado too, guys. We're not hitting the panic button. Like the Leafs, we're hitting the panic button because they haven't won a round in 6 years. Well, 6. They haven't won a round in 18 years. Colorado, there's no need to hit the panic button. You remember Nathan McKinnon was also hit with COVID, which is kind of a big deal. Same thing with Tampa. Lost a bunch of guys last season. They're still adjusting. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning are a completely new team. So, well, not completely new, but when you bring in like a completely new bottom six almost, it takes some time to adjust. So Tampa, I get not playing well. And they also get a pass for playing like 1 million games in the last 2 years, as well as winning 2 Stanley Cups. So we'll pump the brakes on hitting the panic button with those two.
I think you just did a big favor for Leafs Nation, and I think you just answered a question that I didn't think you'd answer in your brief synopsis, but you hit it on the nail. The overreaction in Toronto, why does it compare to other teams? As obvious as it sounds, look at the teams that we're listing here. We're saying, oh, we don't have to hit the panic button on them, even though they were in the same situation as the Toronto Maple Leafs. Colorado Avalanche have advanced past the first round more than enough times in the last couple of years, and they've been sweeping the St. Louis Blues, making easy work of them. Like, they've been a dominant team in the playoffs. Do I think they still have to take an extra step? Yes, I do. They still haven't broken through with that amount of talent. I think it's expected. So I would expect the level of concern to be a little bit brief in Colorado, but nothing major to hit the panic button. Not like you mentioned, that scale, the green, in your case, orange, and the red, they'd be very well into the green because it's not too much of a concern. The Tampa Bay Lightning, you mentioned fatigue being a factor into that. They've played way more games than the rest of the league has. And of course, a remodeled third line, one of their bread and butter that produced a lot of their points, is completely revamped. And it's just that the big glaring thing in the face here, they've won 2 Stanley Cups. So what are you complaining about early in the season about a team who's won back-to-back Stanley Cups? So I think for the Leafs, I hate to bring them back in because we did so much talking about them, but I think this ties in nicely simply because their expectations were they have to win simply because they haven't had any playoff success. These teams get a little bit of leeway. It just goes to show you, if this team were to win a first round this season and nothing were to happen from it, the next year, I think it might have been a little bit different. Now, I know I'm putting the cart before the horse here, but I think it was an interesting thing to look at, a different take, a different angle to sort of look at the situation at. And to bring the situation to light, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jared. These 3 teams, I wouldn't say in the worst situation that they would find themselves in, but not the best place we expected them to be. We expected Colorado to run the table out of the gates, Vegas to surge the Pacific Division, but we haven't gotten it yet. Can you explain the reason why, and maybe something that has to do with us not going all over the border here and panicking, like Adamo said, because there's no real reason to panic with these sort of squads and their capabilities.
Yeah, well, I think you guys absolutely nailed it. For Tampa, you look at the fact that they've simply played so much more games than everyone else. And yes, as much as you want them to go for that three-peat, you want them to have a good year. But let's say hypothetically, it's still very early in the season. Hypothetically, let's say it doesn't work out this year. And the changes they made in the offseason, the losing Barclay Goodrow, the losing Yanni Gord, like the losing of the players of the team, Blake Coleman. Let's say it doesn't work out and they end up maybe missing the playoffs. So they end up making it but not going far. They have their two Stanley Cups. Yes, it would be nice to get another one or go on another run, but I mean, their fan base is satisfied. They've won their back-to-back cups, and as much as they want to do it again, they're fine. And the pressure isn't exactly there because they've achieved it. They've gotten it. Yes, people want them to do it again, but if they hypothetically don't, they're okay. They obviously want to, but they're okay. They won their 2 Stanley Cups. You look at Colorado, yes, this one's a little bit concerning, but at the same time, the players they have there, like, they'll be fine. They'll turn it around, especially in the Central Division. They're going to be okay. And as much as just to talk about your point there about they're fine because they won the playoff series. Yes, they've won a playoff series, but they have actually been stuck in the second round. So it's not like there still is some pressure there, which is why of the 3, I think they're the most concerning, but still they're fine. They're going to figure it out. They will. They're in a pretty weak division, to be honest, and they have all the talent. There's no reason it shouldn't work out. Then you go to Vegas, and it's quite simply, losing Max Pacioretty and losing Mark Stone, that hurts a team. And that ultimately it's showing. It's hurt them, and it's still in the past few games, they've found ways to win. They had a little bit of a slump there, but they found a way to turn it around. They have all the talent there, and there's no reason that all 3 of these teams I still think will end up making the playoffs and likely going on runs and having some success. All 3 are top quality teams in the league. And if you compare it to Toronto, as you brought up, you simply look at the hockey markets they're in. No one compares to the Toronto hockey market. Like, you look at lineups and look at all that stuff. But a big part of it, even if the lineup was so much worse than Toronto, which I don't, yes, it's worse, but I don't think it's so much worse. We have a good team here, but in Toronto, there's pressure. That's how it works. It doesn't exactly matter who you have on the ice there. There's pressure that comes with playing in this city. And it doesn't exactly compare to the new kids on the block in Vegas, the Colorado Avalanche playing up in the mountains there, and the Tampa Bay Lightning who are coming off of their hangover after 2 straight Stanley Cups. Like, yes, there's pressure in every hockey market. We're in the National Hockey League, but it simply doesn't compare to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that is why I think it's a very different scenario right now. And as much as that's a big example I look at to kind of praise Toronto, where it's like, okay, there's a long season ahead. You look at these teams are struggling. We are too. They're probably going to pick it up, and we have a chance to as well. So it's like, yes, you look at that, but I still think it's just kind of a bit of a different scenario.
And I'm glad you brought up the hockey town. I think it's a pretty undermined situation until you're absolutely stuck in the middle of it, like we currently are with the Toronto Maple Leafs, that you come to notice how different it makes in any sporting event, any sporting league for teams. I mean, you have Colorado. There's a reason why Tyson Barrie was on fire when he was in Colorado and then came to Toronto, and under constant pressure and some questionable line pairings, he didn't succeed. It's simply because the hockey market is totally different. That's why guys in Tampa Bay Lightning's organization playing down in Florida, they have totally different careers than they might have had in Toronto. It's just a fact. And maybe I'm just going a little bit off of it here. I think the hockey market does play a role, and I think it's going to work out to these guys' favor because these guys have already lived up to their expectations. The Colorado Avalanche, like you mentioned, like I touched upon it briefly, they have a bit of pressure because that second round has been a bit of a boundary and has sort of consumed them over the last couple of seasons. That's something they have to pass and break through. And I think this is going to be a learning experience for them, like it is for all these teams. And I think they're going to be just fine. I don't even think the panic is the right word. I think it's silly that we've been having this conversation with these teams, but it's the way that the standings are going right now. And I think it's just something worth noting because when are we ever going to see these three teams hit the bottom of the barrel? It's not going to be very often. And I can assure you in the episode 7 or 8 or 9 of this Leafs Line podcast, we won't be talking about these teams. We'll be talking about the other teams who are in the mid pack of it and simply can't get it done. And I think that's all I got to say for these guys. I'm going to turn over to you, Mateo, before we, I guess, go to the most surprising team on the other side of the coin here. But what do you make of these three teams? Which one's more of the sore thumb in this situation? And yeah, what are your thoughts on these guys?
So starting off with Tampa, I guess you could say they've been suffering from success because the past two Cup wins, I guess they've been playing a lot of games. So I guess they've been tired. So, and also losing Barclay Goodrow and Yanni Gord has, I guess, caused them to be a bit slow this year. But I don't think I see any problem with them in the future. Pretty much with all these teams, I think they're gonna be fine for the future. The only thing that stands out for me is I'm still not 100% sure about Darcy Kemper. But you know what? I think Colorado's defense is solid enough to hopefully let Darcy Kemper make the saves that he has to. And I was thinking of what Evan said before. The first line of Vegas, it flows to that team. Like I said before, it goes back where a championship team should flow on every line. So I don't know. If going forward, I think Vegas should try to make sure there's like a good consistency on each line. So yeah.
Can I just say one thing again about like the team?
100%.
Like, yeah, in terms of hitting like the panic button for these teams, I'm actually like leaning towards. I'm between like, as Dan was saying, like yellow and red for Colorado because I really don't like where this is going with Darcy Kemper, and it's not that the defense has been bad; it's also that Darcy Kemper has been bad. Like you can't have a sub 900 save percentage on a team that showcases guys like McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. Obviously, Devon Taves is out right now. Samuel Girard, he did get hurt, but he was there. You have the pieces. I've regurgitated this before. I wasn't a fan of that move. Like I thought it was a little bit of a desperate move to trade a first round pick, and even a guy like Connor Timmins, who's a great defensive prospect, for Darcy Kemper. I don't think he's that great of a goalie, and I think that's what's going to bite them come playoff time, because I think a team like Vegas and even trying to think, like Vegas could easily eat Darcy Kemper alive, and I don't even think it comes down to like Colorado as a whole. It's just like, if you could beat the goaltender, then who the hell cares who's in front? And then in terms of Tampa, they're gassed. Like you can even tell in their games, like they're toast. And I remember hearing something like they've played at least 145 games in their last 2 years when you include the regular season and playoffs. So I'm taking it as the first half of the season. When I say first half, I mean up to December, as kind of just like, okay, like let's just at least get back into the groove. Like as long as they make the playoffs, I'm confident in them, because I know by the time January and February hits, they'll finally pick things back up again. But I think right now it's like guys need a break. They need an off season. And because like good for them, they're playing so long that they're not getting the proper rest that they need before they have to go back to the gym in the summertime.
And it was the quick turnaround too. Like it was a shortened season last year. The playoffs extended into
July,
July,
Yeah.
which is
and
I
then they
think
got to play
usually
again in October,
yeah.
and guys want at least a month off before they have to pick up another weight. Like when you're on Tampa, you don't have that time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Fair point. And I mean, you definitely see it in their play. I was watching some highlights for the past couple of weeks with this team, and it's just really slow, sluggish, not the lack of effort, but just lack of execution that you're typically seeing from this offensive Lightning squad. And I don't really want to spend too much time on this because I know we're running a little sharp on time, and I want to transition pretty quickly here to the most surprising teams of the National Hockey League through 2 weeks of play. And I'm going to just turn it over to all you guys. If you could briefly just touch upon the biggest surprise of the team. We got some squads to choose from. We got the 4 perfect teams. Actually, I don't know. Are they still? I think they're still perfect
Could
right
we
now.
say
Yeah,
could we say our own?
yeah, you can say your own. I'm just going to give a quick list.
Okay.
So the Florida Panthers, St. Louis Blues, Edmonton Oilers, and Carolina Hurricanes are undefeated so far. The Sabres, I believe last time I checked, are 4-1-1. Pretty surprising, but as we know, they are accustomed to starting off the year in Fuego. The Sharks are at 8 points, which is, I think they're still at 8. Could be wrong. I wrote this yesterday, but heading into today, they were at 8 points. And the Penguins, they just took a loss to Tampa Bay this evening. Or I think it was last night, mind you. But they have looked pretty decent without a lot of their pieces in the mix, especially Crosby and Malkin. And of course, the Canadian teams, the pair of Canadian teams, someone that we haven't really been saying too much, Canadian teams doing well. The Flames are off 4 straight dominant wins. And the Canada's best team could potentially be the undefeated Edmonton Oilers that I touched upon briefly. So I'll turn it over to you guys. And obviously, Evan, you guys are all totally open to naming your own team for the biggest surprise. But I'm looking more for a successful surprise, not the garbage surprise that we've been talking to so much on the show, unless you want to go that route. But I mean, the biggest surprise of the year, I guess I'll start with you, Evan. What do you make of the biggest surprise? You could go positive and negative if you like.
Okay. I'll do two brief ones. I'll do two brief ones. My positive is the Calgary Flames, because I didn't think they would be this good. Obviously, 7 games in, like I'm not saying that they're going to the Stanley Cup, nor do I even think they'll touch a conference finals, but like Andrew Mangiapane, like my God, him and I believe it's Elias Lindholm have accounted for at least 80% of the goals. If they could keep that up consistently, they could definitely be a very dangerous team. Negative surprises, I gotta say the New York Islanders. I thought they would be a lot better. I really like that tandem of Sorokin and Varlamov. Andres Lee is back. Matt Barzal. Honestly, Matt Barzal has been a little underwhelming to me ever since his rookie year. He had his rookie year, 62 points in 66 games. Since then, the points have decreased each year, and it's not looking good for him right now. He really needs to step it up, because I don't know if New York really wants to hold on to him for that much longer if all they're noticing is a point aggression. That was just my surprising team. I thought Barzal would want to come into this summer and kind of prove himself. He's nearing that. Did he sign a new contract, or he's nearing that contract year? So you figured he would want to come in hot. But yeah, they're my least surprising team I'm sorry, they're my most surprising. They're the least underwhelming team for me at 3-2-1. I thought they would be a little bit better than that.
Adama, what about you? What you got lined up for surprising teams?
So I got 2 off the top of my head. One being the Minnesota Wild, the Kirill Kaprizov superstar-led Minnesota Wild. They are 5-1, and the games I've watched 2. I forgot the most recent one I watched, but I had it on. They looked. I think it was against LA. They look really good. They look really good, even without Kaprizov hasn't scored a goal yet. I don't know if you guys saw on the Sportsnet broadcast tonight. He has like the second most shots without a goal, and he still looks so good. He's 5 points in 6 games. So briefly, I'll just say the Minnesota Wild. Shout out to them, 5-1. The other team that looks really good is the Erik Karlsson-led San Jose Sharks. They look really good, and I'm going to be honest, I'm surprised because they're not good, but Erik Karlsson looks like he's not returning back to like best defenseman in the world good, but he looks like he's he's a phenomenal skater, even with that busted ankle or whatever it is. I think it might be his knee, one of those two. So yeah, I'll say those 2.
Shades of
surprised me.
2017. Like it's looking pretty nice from Erik Karlsson. I didn't
Oh,
expect
he's
he could
doing bits for my
potentially.
fantasy too.
Yeah, I was gonna
So there
say
it is.
just about to say that he is going to be doing wonders for the guys who picked him up in fantasy. I personally do believe it's a bit of a hot phase right now. I
Yeah.
think the Sharks are going to fade during the remainder of the season. I can't see this hot streak, especially with the lineup that they throw out there each and every night. Like one of their rookies is up there in the points leading their team. So
Yeah.
this is obviously a fade. It's not going to last too long, and I think Karlsson might be part of that. Hopefully not. I really want to see the guy reinvigorate. I don't even know if that's a word.
Rejuvenate.
Rejuvenate.
Yeah.
I
There
don't
you
know
go.
what I said. Rejuvenate his career because he's a terrific talent, and he's been with all that money he's making and that trade that was made from the Ottawa Senators, who they got from it. So it's you would never have thought of it at the time, but the Ottawa Senators are looking right now as the clear-cut favorites to favor that trade. But maybe Erik Karlsson this season might change and swing some heads. And I'm going to quickly flip it over to you, Jared. If you could just give me a couple teams that you think are the biggest surprises of this premature NHL season.
Well, it's not necessarily that it's so surprising, but I just want to shout out briefly the Edmonton Oilers because as much as, yes, we knew they're in a weak division, so we knew they were going to do well in the Pacific Division, but it's more like how good they're doing. Quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of the way their team's built. They're incredibly top-heavy, but as of now, it's working. I mean, they're undefeated. They're 5-0-0. And whatever's happening there, it's the Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl show, but it's working. And yes, I don't like their team defensively. I don't like their depth. They're a very top-heavy team. But I just want to say weirdly, because that isn't a building of a team that usually ends up working. But right now, they are looking dominant right now. And that is a scary team. And as much as, yeah, we knew they were going to make the playoffs because they're in the Pacific Division, but I'm very impressed with how everything's working there. Because you're actually starting to see a little bit of secondary story. I mean, Jesse Puljujarvi is looking like he's playing great. Zach Hyman, I hate to say, but he is absolutely
6 goals
flying
in
over
6
there.
games.
He is absolutely flying
Jeez.
there with McDavid.
He just scored
Like,
tonight.
Yeah, he scored tonight. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not necessarily that it's my biggest surprise because yes, we knew they were going to be solid, but I don't know. I just really wanted to shout out the Edmonton Oilers because a build of a team that we usually haven't seen succeed in the NHL. And yes, we have to see how it works come playoff time. But I don't know. I really wanted to shout out the Edmonton Oilers there because it's working right now. And another team that's, I guess, more shocking and more surprising, I really like the San Jose Sharks answer that Adamo was giving. I just want to quickly look at the standings. Maybe more of a negative team. Yes, they haven't played a lot of games, but I'm really not a fan of what's happening there with the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, yes, they're 2-1-1. They're doing fine, but I mean, being at the bottom of the Metropolitan Division, it's just concerning to see. And yes, a big factor is they've played less games than everyone, and I do think it will work out. And Carter Hart's been fine, but I don't know. Just looking at the standings, just glancing at it, seeing the Philadelphia Flyers at the bottom of the standings is a concerning sign. The New York Islanders answer is great as well because, I mean, they're a team that has gone to the conference finals 2 straight years. And yes, they're much more of a defensive, heavy, hit you, fight you type of team, which obviously isn't expected to be amazing in the regular season. It's something that's really supposed to come alive in the playoffs. It's just pretty concerning to see how they've started so far.
Yeah, not much to choose from for Mateo. I think we sort of
sorry,
made his decision a
buddy.
little bit harder, but
No, I got a few.
you got a few. Let me
Yeah.
hear them because there's a lot of teams that have been doing well, have been doing a little bit less than what we've expected. Can you name anything different? Because these guys, man, they've been spot on, just like the trivia answers.
So I was
No
gonna
big
say,
deal.
I was gonna say the Detroit Red Wings. They're third in the Atlantic. They have a winning record of 4-2-1. And you know what? Tyler Bertuzzi and is it Lucas Raymond?
Yeah, Lucas
Yep.
Raymond.
Tearing it
Yeah,
up.
they've been going off. Like I think Bertuzzi had a 4-point game, and also I think Raymond. They both had 4-point games one game. I think they just been really surprising. I thought they were gonna be like dead last in the Atlantic, in my opinion. Either them or in Ottawa. So yeah, it's good to see. And then obviously, I want to shout out Adamo because before the season, he said that Sullivan always gets it done for the Penguins, and he was right. Even without Crosby and Malkin, they got it done. So I want to shout him out for them.
They could fully pull out the Wilkes, Bears, Scranton, whatever the hell they're
Wilkes,
called.
Berry,
Wilkes,
Scranton,
Berry,
That's what they're
Penguins.
called. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Wilkes,
throw them
Berry,
out with Scott with Steve Sullivan and they'll win.
Mike Sullivan. But
Mike Sullivan. Who's Steve Sullivan? Steve Sullivan. That's familiar.
He was a
Mike
former player. Steve. He's the guy that injured Carlson. You remember with the skate?
Oh,
That might be it.
The
I don't know
Achilles.
how you remember
yeah.
that, but yeah,
Yeah.
Steve Sullivan. Yes, he did exist.
Right.
I'm not
My head
lying.
was going to
Exist.
James P. Sullivan from Monsters Inc. That's where my head went.
That's Sullivan on Earth, man.
I love Jared.
Man.
Oh no, Matt Cook injured. Sorry, Matt Cook
Yeah,
injured.
Matt Cook's a
Carlson. Yeah,
psychopath. but
yeah. No, it was Sullivan.
that's another
Sullivan
thing.
was a player before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, do anyone else have anything to add before we sign
Yeah,
off here?
Oh, you go first,
I-
Jared, and
I-
then
Tough.
you go first.
Evan, you go first.
Fuck. All right. I'm gonna like say what I used to say. I don't like to always be right, but when I am, Sergei Bobrovsky has been like he's been kind of I'm knocking
chilling.
on
He's
wood
been
over
sick.
here.
He's been
But,
sick.
Better
but my
friggin' pound
last
that wood.
my last pick in the Yahoo draft is turning out to be pretty solid for me. He's
He's been
5-0 right now. The Florida Panthers are 7-0 as a whole, but Bobrovsky also, knock on wood again, he's not giving up a lot of goals too. Like he's keeping the Florida Panthers in games. He just gave up 1 goal to the Boston Bruins, who have arguably one of the most lethal offenses that we have seen in some time. So I just want to shout out him. I think he's really rejuvenating his name. So that's it.
I just wanted to build on Mateo was mentioning. I mean, you look at the Detroit Red Wings and teams like that. You could also throw the Buffalo Sabres in there. I was just gonna say I hesitate to shout out those teams yet because I mean we've seen this movie before. We've seen there's always at the start of the year it's this team that was expected to be shit is going on a run. The first less than 10 games into the season. So I hesitate to shout them out too much. Yes, they've been surprising. They've been good. I like the fact that when you look at Detroit in particular, the young kids are contributing. I mean, Moritz Seider's looked great. Lucas Raymond's looked great. So there's definitely positive signs there. And I'm happy for their fan base, of course. But it's just, I don't know. I hesitate to shout them out too much just yet because it's like, that's a big example of it being so early in the season where it's way too early to know what's going to happen. And I mean, Buffalo Sabres have done this before. They've been a first place team in the league in October, and they've still ended up dead last. So I really
it's a miracle.
I really hesitate to shout out these teams.
Detroit. Jared hates Detroit. Confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody
all
welcomed him
business.
into Detroit.
He just doesn't like the Red Wings. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Leafs fan. I really don't like you're not wrong. I don't like the Red Wings, but
Fair.
they have nice jerseys.
Nobody welcomed
not
him
not
into
even. They have a pretty boring jersey. They have a nice.
I actually
logo.
don't like their
They're
logo.
old.
People
They're
talk about
old
their
winter
logo.
classics.
No, I like their logo, but
I'm
their
not a fan of
jersey
the
itself is
logo.
kind of just red. It's pretty boring.
I know it is
but-
red.
It's just red and white.
very
It's
classic.
kind of
Yeah.
bland. Yeah.
Yeah, it's classic.
Anyways,
Whatever, I don't know. I think it's too early to know what those seasons. I get that. That's what this time of year is all about. It's all about overreactions. All about this team's had a bad first 5 games of the season. Let's talk all about
Yeah.
it. I get it. They call it overreaction season for a reason, but I don't know. I'm hesitating to you could talk about teams we expected to be better and kind of criticize them, but the teams that we really were expected to be dead last that are off to hot starts, I'm still reserving my comments a little bit because I mean, do we really and anything's possible, it's hockey, but are we really expecting the Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings to be top of the Atlantic running the show by the end of the year? I highly doubt
Yes.
it. So
Yes, Tyler Bertuzzi for Ard Ross.
if it happens,
No, it's not.
let's see it, but I don't know.
It'd be fun though.
it would be
Kind
fun.
of like the Bengals in the NFL.
Yeah.
Everyone's following that. Love Joe Burrow.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jamari
right.
Chase has been making my fantasy team light up. Man.
Yeah.
Anybody? All right.
Take us home, Mario.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I was hoping to go off of.
On a
I
segment.
mean,
Oh,
honestly,
so-
I had a segue going. I had one until Evan decided not to pump his tires on the fantasy football thing that I was expecting.
Wait, I didn't say fantasy
wholeheartedly.
football. That was
Yeah, I was talking about fan. Actually,
No, I was hoping you were going to give a comment on your not even hot start, the consistency with that 99% playoff.
I can't say the team name for legal reasons,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Legal reasons will prohibit that. Yes.
but legal reasons. I'm just saying, I got a lot of heat for I took Kelsey and Hill with those first 2 picks. I'm getting a lot of heat for my running backs. My running backs are in the top 15, so I'll take it. I'm projected 100. I'm playing Adamo this week. I'm sorry, Adamo. Your Monday morning is gonna suck.
I'm dead last. I'm second last now. Matt's actually last.
Yeah.
So
We're
I'm not
actually
doing
okay. What
punishment.
do you think of this idea? Like
Yeah.
like so obviously like in the playoff format, like
That's a huge win.
the consolation, like there's a consolation bracket.
Yeah.
So we're thinking like whoever wins the
dead
league,
last. Dead
whoever
last.
wins the league should determine the punishment for the person who gets like dead last. Like whoever like
Yeah.
gets last in the consolation. I personally, I could stop recording now and then I could say it after. I personally think you should run across the Ryerson campus just in your underwear in January. My personal opinion, it's usually
0% chance of doing
it's
that.
usually
0%.
warm where I'm from in January, so it shouldn't be that bad. Don't know what it's like here, but
It's
Oh,
very
buddy.
cold. It's
just
very
man up
cold.
and do it. If not, and if I
no.
win the league, I have a notebook of punishments for you guys. So
I gotta start fixing up here.
so you better get cracking on that with some trades.
Yeah. Oh, this is brutal.
I just want to
My,
quickly
go ahead.
shout out my fantasy football team. It's in a different league than you guys, but I mean we're celebrating our first win of the season right
my
now.
God.
That's Riches
Forward.
and Rody
Congrats,
Rotenberg,
buddy.
and we're
Let's
rolling right
go.
now.
That's
A huge
win.
W.
We don't need to
And
say
I-
the full record though. We just got the first win though. That's all that matters.
Exactly.
All
Yeah,
about-
nothing like that
That's
first
easier.
win feeling.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I
You
got
know
my
what
first
comes
one, too,
before the
so-
losing column, Jared? The win column. That's all they look at first. You got one in there. It's,
They don't
great thing
ask
to
how,
see.
they ask how many, and we're at
Yeah.
one.
Damn
We're at one.
right. Damn right, Jared. That's what's up.
Nope.
Anyways, I think
All
we might have to sign off here. I'm sorry to interrupt your fantasy football talk, but we are a hockey podcast nonetheless. And I mean, Evan was pumping his tires a little bit. It's time to pump the brakes, not only on the regular season and the overreactions, but on this podcast. I'd like to thank you guys all for tuning in to season 2, episode 5 of the Leafs Line podcast. It's been a terrific one. We got to see probably the best Leafs discussions we are hopefully going to see in quite a while, because Scooby's making an appearance. Okay. Love it. Anyways, it's so difficult giving a conclusion, signing off with Scooby-Doo in my main screen here, but coffee addiction.
A little bit.
A little
Continue, buddy.
Anyways, that concludes, like I said before, season 2, week 5, episode 5 of the Leafs Line podcast. Tune in next Wednesday. We'll have a nice episode up for you, probably and hopefully talking about a better situation for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are in the name. We have to get to them. And today we spent a big portion of them, and hopefully we answer some of the questions that were lingering in your mind. So thank you. That is it from me. Adamo, thank you for coming on. Jared, as always, thank you for coming on. Evan, I'm going to thank you because you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And Mateo, I have to thank you and your little pet there, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, because it wouldn't be a podcast and a great podcast of that without you guys. So I appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate the fans for tuning in. And I think, Evan, do what you do best, man, because you're pretty good at this kind of stuff.